Back in open session. First item on the agenda is taking positive steps of service award.
Yes, I would invite Ms. Fassbender and Mr. Shinneman to come up. I believe they are honoring Mr. Glenn Neeson.
Yeah, Glenn, come on. So we would like to recognize Mr. Glenn Neeson, a volunteer at the primary school and elementary school. Glenn has volunteered with Mrs. Schmeling for the last 20 years, working with kids on their math facts. This year she asked him if he would be interested in trying something new, and he said as long as he was helping kids, it was okay with him. So instead of just working with her class, he's working with all the fourth graders who could use an extra boost with their math facts. Mrs. Schmeling shared that Mr. Neeson is very kind, supportive, and caring. The kids love going to work with him and ask daily, is Mr. Neeson coming today?
So Mr. Neeson has also been working with Mrs. Wolf for the past 20 years, and she too shared how patient, kind, and encouraging he is, and how lucky she feels working with him each year. So she thought it'd be fun to ask the kids what they thought of Mr. Neeson, and so here are some of the things they said. I like doing work with him because he is nice, he is kind of funny, he does math with us a lot, he helps us work with our math, he helps us learn, he is kind, he cares for others when they don't get it right, he likes being with us, he's always smiling, he likes working with us, and I asked, how can you tell? They answered, he has a smile on his face, he's nice, he says hi and goodbye.
Life's pretty simple.
The kids feel supported, successful, and cared about by Mr. Neeson, and his gift of time has benefited hundreds of students. So thank you, Mr. Neeson, for everything you've done.
You're certainly welcome, and thank you.
Positive Step Service Award, and here's your pay for all that work.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of money.
For you in front of the Lodi Prize, and we'll take a picture of all three of you.
Oh, sure, if I could. Thank you. I hope I don't have to sing.
Well, you can if you'd like, but you're
No. Get my money's situated.
That's right. Thank you so much for
And
everything.
thank you.
Appreciate it. You've probably done.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh, we appreciate it.
That comes later.
Okay, next we have a Thailand exchange trip presentation.
Yes, we have a group of students who are going to come, who just returned from Thailand here in December, and they are going to introduce themselves and then talk about their experience.
You're short, we're tall, so you're perfect. Shorter.
All right, so this is about our Thailand trip. I'm Ashlyn Lezak.
I'm Sam Pupper.
I'm Adriana Gonzalez. So first we're going to be talking about enrichment opportunities that we got there, like stepping outside of our comfort zones, experiencing new cultures, being independent, trying new things, forming connections, just basically doing a lot of stuff that we really haven't gotten a lot of experience with. Like living in a small town, you don't really get to talk to a lot of people who are really different from you or have any kinds of like different culture. And just like being by yourself, you know, we were in the plains without our families, just like with people from school and forming connections. We have like lifelong friends with the people from Thailand and meeting all the kids who are our age there and all of our hosts.
So one benefit we reached from the trip was cultural appreciation. So like even though now we can like watch YouTube videos, we can look at pictures, we can learn a lot about the whole world, it doesn't really compare to living in a foreign country for a couple weeks. Like what we've learned about other cultures and other ways of life is just incomparable to what we have already known. And it's just an eye-opening experience that really is just going to affect us for years to come. So looking at some stuff we did, so the food there is very different, just in general, like fried fish there looks very different from fried fish here. The architecture and the religions that are practiced are completely separate, so we learned a lot about different cultures. Like this is a Hindu statue outside of a Buddhist temple in Bangkok. And we even saw ruined sites from the Kingdom of Ayutthaya.
So for traveling experience, none of us had ever been across the globe, let alone traveled without the comfort of our families, as I said before. Some of us hadn't even been on a plane before. This gave us foundation for future careers and lifestyles like traveling abroad, for college, or getting a job that requires a lot of moving around. Like if you ever want to do just like going anywhere, traveling all the way across the world to Thailand is a good experience, and like having that knowledge of what it's like, especially being by yourself, because when you're an adult, obviously you're not going to be with your families 24/7.
And one of the most memorable days of our trip was when we went to Death Railway in Kanchanaburi. So we went to Hellfire Pass and we actually walked along this trail. So we first went to the interpretive center and we learned about it, and we learned that it was very sad. There was a lot of labor and it was very hard, very cruel. And then we walked down the actual pass and saw some of the railroad that was built. And then we took a train ride to Kanchanaburi. It was absolutely beautiful. But then we noticed, like, oh, look at all this history that's here. And we actually thought about it, and seeing how much wildlife and like plants there were there, thinking about having to live there and work in that environment would be awful, especially during the rainy season. So we went to the museum, and there we learned more about Death Railway as a whole, rather than just that Hellfire Pass. And we went to the war cemetery, and we paid respects to all the people that died. So again, it was gorgeous. I wish photos could translate this. But once we realized how sad this history was, it kind of put it into perspective. Like, I don't know, it was just very interesting. So you can see a part of the railroad a little bit on the bottom, and so there wasn't a lot of it anymore. Most of it's gone now. And they had to carve out of the mountain. This was our train ride. It was just a normal train. I've never been on a train, so I think this is what a normal train looks like. And so, yeah.
So for school, it was interesting seeing how other schools and their cultures are taught. It was a lot different than ours. Like, we obviously have a closed-in, smaller building, and they have almost like apartments that are open in the hallways, like open air. So it was multiple buildings that had like way more classrooms, and we had massive cafeterias with like rows and rows of different food, and just like how they were taught, like they don't have really strict bells or like times that you need to be in the school, stuff like that. We were just like really interested by like how they lived and went to school. It opened up the possibility of going to college in other countries or areas. Like if you don't like the schooling here, or if you just wanted to try something new, you could go to like another country that has opportunities for colleges there and higher education. So this is a picture of the canteen. It's this whole area where all the students eat, and then this is like another building. We were from like a 5 or 6 story building that had like tons of classrooms in each level, and then they had a massive like gym and auditorium area where like they did Buddhist prayers, and there was like something for the king on Wednesdays. I'm not exactly sure what it was because it was all in Thai, but that's like they do that instead of the Pledge of Allegiance. So we had experience with like talking to all the students in different grade levels. We gave presentations and we played games. This is a picture of like what all the hallways looked like with open air. It was really hot, but it was a nice view.
So how did this trip affect each of us personally? For me, I was one of those people that have never been on a plane before. So that was probably my biggest fear of the whole trip, which is why I didn't apply in the first round of applications. But I eventually got on, and it was fine. And I gained a massive mutual respect for their culture and how they do things. Not that I didn't have it already, but once you're there, it totally puts it into a new perspective. Speaking of which, it just gave me a new perspective. I just saw how other people live, and it can be completely different than us, but they still have the same joys that we have.
For me, definitely the biggest part of the trip was I made connections abroad. I have now friends that live in Thailand. And I also learned just like what the life is of average people on the other side of the world. And I realized how different it is, but also how similar it is. And it gave me just a perspective of people living across the whole globe and what it's like.
I took away a lot, stepping outside of my comfort zone. I'd never been outside the country or anything like that. Just like talking a lot in front of like people that I'd obviously never met before, giving lots of presentations to all the students there, and just like going out, and a lot of people wanted to come up and talk to me, which I was obviously not used to that. Boosting your confidence, now that you have like experience talking to like just random people, giving big presentations, like I feel like it's easier to like give presentations like this, or just like talk to people in general, I guess.
And that's it.
So,
Thank you.
Nice.
So board members, do you have any questions?
Do you know how many people went to school there? How many students were in that school that you were?
About 2,000. So 2,700. So almost 3,000.
Did you each stay then with a host family the entire time? Yeah. So that was somebody you just met, like, when you got there?
Yeah, and right when we landed, my friend, our fellow traveler, Hannah, her host's mother had COVID, so she ended up staying with me for a couple nights, and that was fine too. Like, it was just quick, but it just worked.
So you showed a bunch of photos with uniforms, students in uniforms. How did you feel about uniforms? How would you feel about uniforms here?
Be careful how you answer.
You know, I did not mind it there.
I wouldn't mind it here.
Perfectly said, yeah, I would agree.
they were really hot there. Like the gym uniforms were really thick shirts and pants, and we were like walking around in like 100-degree weather, and it wasn't the most
humidity.
fun.
So definitely there are cons to it. What about pros? Were there any pros though? Everybody having the same uniform?
We didn't have to pack a lot of clothes.
No, I packed a lot of clothes, and I didn't end up needing like over half of them because we just wore uniforms the whole time.
Whole nother experience. The other thing is, now that you've had this cultural experience over there, Thai students are coming here. So will it change your perspective when they come here, right? So they're gonna come here. You're gonna have a whole different perspective of how they feel once they get here.
Definitely.
And so will you do certain things now that you know that? I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yes, I'm glad I went over there first. I think I'm more prepared to host than I definitely would have been without that experience first.
Yeah, I feel like I know how to accommodate them better. Like now that I know what it's like over there and what they're used to, and I can like kind of bring it into what we have over here.
And also just like what it feels like to be completely outside of your comfort zone. And even more for them, because the ones that are coming over here, like in March, are going to be younger than we are even.
What is one takeaway that you saw over there that you can appreciate that we have here, that you didn't have there?
Toilet paper.
That's a good one.
That is good.
It's ranch dressing.
Another good one.
I have no clue. I just loved their weather. I kind of totally loved it there.
You did.
Like, I preferred it. Just like in every way. Not gonna lie, it was awesome.
Do any of you guys,
Weather day, that's true.
True.
are you planning more travel now that you're global travelers?
Yes. This was nice because it was way less expensive than it would have been on my own. So now that I'm actually looking to travel myself, that's expensive. Oh my goodness. Yeah, but I still want to.
I feel like it's easier going like almost anywhere else now that we've been all the way across the world.
How long of a plane trip was it?
It's like 2 flights. One was like 15 hours, the other was like 6.
I always say it felt like 5 minutes.
I always say she lies.
Anybody else?
Thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
you.
We really
That was a
appreciate
great
it.
presentation.
You guys want to be on deck while they're?
Oh, sure.
All right, so we are moving forward to another presentation that was postponed from December. What Community Action Team is here to present on our youth risk behavior survey results. So welcome to Paula Anger, Brian Bilsey, and Stephen Rex, and thanks for being here tonight.
Well, thank you, and again, sorry about December, we are much healthier this evening, so you would be we're much better served to you tonight.
Yes.
Well, we wanted to thank you for inviting us to come this evening and share with you some of the data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. The Youth Risk Behavior Survey, or the YRBS, is conducted every 2 years as part of a national effort by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The survey is taken by our middle school and high school students. The data is the property of the school district of Lodi, and LCAT has been fortunate over the last 10 years to have a relationship with the school that allows us to partner in the review and distribution of this data. Please know that the YRBS survey is not designed for or capable of divulging specific names of students. However, the results we are going to share do represent numbers of our students, and we are very sensitive to that fact. Our purpose in sharing the YRBS information is that it is such an important tool in helping us get a glimpse of the health-related behaviors of our kids. For LCAT, it gives us a view as to where we can continue with educational campaigns and programming. For the community, I hope it gives you a reason to get involved with our young people. I hope it gives you pause as you make important decisions that affect their lives every single day. And I hope it helps you to realize the importance of every single one of us as we engage with, raise, and impact the amazing young members of our community. And Stephen is going to go through some of the data that we have.
Wow, that was like a commercial you read.
Was it?
Yeah, that was good. I'm gonna wing it, so.
Well, it's just important to me, so.
All right, so before I get into the details of it, I want to set the stage a little bit. I want to take you back a few years. This survey was given on October 4th, the week of October 4th of 2021. So that was a while ago. DPS took a long time to get this data out. And I think we kind of, now that we've had time to digest it, we understand why. The data this time is very odd. And there's probably a lot of reasons for it. And some of that is, if you think back to what was going on, and we were just kind of coming out of all the restrictions for COVID. I should have mentioned that parents could opt out. It was given to all, as Paula said, grades 6 through 12 in Lodi. We had very few students opt out of it. Less than 5, I believe, if I recall. You don't remember. You're looking at me and the blank stare. School was back in session 5 days a week, but it was just back in session 5 days a week. Masks were required indoors, and most co-curricular activities returned, but some with restrictions. The big one was social distancing was still a big thing. So this gives us a little bit of a clue as the kids were answering these questions as they were coming out of that time. And so that's why it looks, the data to us, for those of us that have been poring over it for the last 10, 12 years, it didn't look normal. It was not given at the same time of year. This was given in the fall. They're normally given in the spring. In fact, this coming spring, it's going to be given again. So we'll get better data at that point, we think. But having said all that, we'll go ahead and go through it because there is value here. First thing that I always do is, I've been collecting this since 2005. This is for alcohol non-use in the last 30 days. So the question is, have you had anything more than a sip of alcohol within the last 30 days? And so the blue here, I know it's hard for you guys all to see this. I think it's in your board docs too if you need it. The blue is for 7th graders. The green is for 9th graders, and the gold is 11th graders. And it's just a sampling, and you can see how, especially the 7th graders, you see how it was kind of climbing into 2013. We took a little bit of dip in 2015. 2017 went back almost to 100%. A lot of these numbers are rounded, so. And then we took a drop in 2019, and it kind of stayed even. But this is what we're looking for. When Paula said that we don't really talk about the exact numbers, because especially in Lodi, the numbers of groups are so small that you could start to identify with kids, with people, with families. You know, you could all sit there and think through those things. But what we're really looking for is the trends. The other thing that always comes up is people say, well, students lie on these surveys. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. If you're looking at trends, it doesn't really matter because it's going to be about the same ratio all the way through. So that's why we really love this trend data.
And just to point out, this is non-use, so this is not use. This is not alcohol use, this is non-use. I just saw some faces that looked stunned. I didn't want them to.
Okay, so now we're gonna flip it though. Now that she made that clear,
Right.
I'm gonna go back the other direction. This is use. This is specifically the high school. So of all the students in the high school that took this, 30% said they had had alcohol in the last 30 days. When we break that up, female was 32%, male was 29%. 9th grade was 12%, and it just kind of goes up to 43% through 12th grade. This is the middle school alcohol use. So again, this is students who have said that they did take it. Of all students in the middle school, it's 11%, female is 12, male is 9, and then it starts at 7% with 6th grade, 14% 8th grade. Kind of see a trend here too. We've seen this over the last several years, or instances we've taken this. The female numbers are higher than the male numbers, which kind of did a flip about 6 years ago, I think, something like that.
Now it's,
High school vaping. The question was, have you ever used an electronic vaping device? And so in 2017, 17.3% said yes. 2019, it was up to 38%. And in 2021, it was 16%. Now, for those of you in the room that work directly with kids in the schools, that number seems interesting. Because why did it drop to 16%? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I think there was something going on here with the fact that social distancing, smaller groups, not being in peer groups, things like that, may have affected the numbers, but we just don't know. We're going to talk about how we're going to try to figure that out here in just a little bit. High school marijuana use reported that they have not used marijuana in the past 30 days. You can kind of see in 2011 it was 75%. We worked our way up to 91% in 2017. And then it's kind of been creeping down, 85% in 2019 and 84% in 2021. We're actually kind of excited about that number. That was one that we really thought was going to jump through the roof with all the publicity that marijuana's been getting and the more access to it. We kind of thought we'd see that number go up. In reality, it might have, but again, I think that social distancing, peer pressure, things like that may have helped contain that number. The middle school got kind of garbled up there. In 2017, it was 97% had not, 96% in 2019, and 99% in 2021. So again, those numbers went in the right direction, which is really, really good, and shocked us, frankly, when we saw it. So when we break that down for high school students, again, all high school students that took the survey, it was 16%. Female was 15%, now we flip, and male is higher at 17%. 9th grade is at 8%. 17% for 10th, 24% for 11th, and 18% for 12th.
What are they defining as marijuana use?
Do you have a question there?
Yes.
Is it
This is high school, right?
high school? Yeah.
I'm thinking that it just says used marijuana, like in the. But most of them just say during the past 30 days, have you used marijuana?
Yeah, I think marijuana, we're lucky that in the last couple of years we've had it on there.
They don't break it down into different,
Yeah, so there's not,
ways of
definitely not
consuming
edibles, and
marijuana,
I don't
right.
think they include vaping in that either.
The edibles is what I was getting at.
Yeah, it does, I'm
Right.
pretty sure it does not include edibles.
no, it doesn't ask that question.
Should.
While she's looking that up, I'll keep going forward though. High school prescription drug use. So this is using a prescription without a doctor's order. In 2017, it was 4%, went up to 8% in 2019, and was 10% in 2021. This is another one, when you go back further, their numbers were way higher on that, and they came down. And so, 8 to 10%, okay. That can fall into, I had a migraine and mom gave me some of her migraine medication. It could be, there's a whole wide category of this. Back in 2005, when we started this, the prescription drug abuse was huge. It was taking from grandma and grandpa's cabinets. It was taking medications that you really didn't want anybody taking, and kids were taking that. We don't hear those stories anymore, but I think there is still use going on for like migraines and things like that.
And to Scott's question, it says, during the past 30 days, how many times did you use marijuana, was what they asked.
So I didn't even dispute. Just marijuana. High school perception of harm. So these were separate questions, but basically it was saying, do you consider it to be a great risk or not? And so prescription drugs, the students in high school, 82% of them say using prescription drugs is a high risk to them.
That aren't
and to their
prescribed
kids.
to you, I think is what it says, yeah.
What?
I think it says prescription drugs that are not prescribed to you, yeah.
Alcohol, 57%, so the perception that alcohol is a risk to them is 57%. Tobacco, 78%. Marijuana, 38%. This is the number that really went down. The perception of harm of marijuana is way down. And again, we don't get into perception of harm for adults. This is for teenage use, and there is a lot of data on teenage use of all three of those: prescription drugs, alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana, all four of those. And so that's one of the things that we look at of how can we start educating better in the community about that perception of harm, particularly for younger people. Middle school perception of harm, those numbers are about where they've been for the last several years. Prescription drugs, 81%, alcohol, 63%, tobacco, 80%, and marijuana, 67%. You can definitely tell, if you take prescription drugs out of it, where the money is spent, right? There's a lot more money spent in the country on tobacco prevention than there is on marijuana prevention and alcohol prevention. So you can start to see it in these statistics. This is where it starts getting kind of interesting, because this is the thing that we heard all through the pandemic was about anxiety and depression. So you can see here, high school anxiety students who had experienced significant problems with anxiety over the past 12 months, and that was the phrasing of the question. So all students in the high school, so the blue is 2019 and the green is 2021. So it went from 46 to 49%, so it didn't jump drastically, but it did go up. Female students went from 60 to 68, that's a pretty good leap. Males actually went down from 33 to 30%. Ninth graders went down, 10th grade went down, 11th went way up, and 12th went up. So this is kind of following the trend of the last several surveys where anxiety has just continually creeped up. But it's not as significant as we thought it would be as of a jump based on all the anecdotal evidence that we had. So again, the numbers and reality, not sure that they're working out, but something we can dig into. Middle school anxiety stayed the same for all students, 48% across the board. Female drops in this case from 64 to 59. Male went up from 34 to 40. Sixth grade, the question, this was the first time the question was asked. They hadn't asked it before for some reason. Seventh grade went from 40% to 57%. And eighth grade dropped from 56 to 50%. Suicidal thoughts. So students who seriously considered suicide in the past 12 months. So there are multiple questions on this one. There's everything from, I think this is the first question. Have you seriously considered it? There's one that says, have you actually made a plan? And have you actually attempted it? So this is kind of the entry level one. In 2017, that was 12%. It went up to 26% in 2019, and it's dropped down to 16% in 2021. That's another interesting number for us. Let's see, that was middle school. This is high school. So this kind of went the direction we thought it would go. 11% in 2017, 16% in 2019, and 18% in 2021. Depression. Students who experience prolonged sadness. This is an interesting question, and I always remember this. It's been on since the first time I saw this report. It basically says, have you been so depressed that you have stopped doing your normal activities for the past 2 weeks? So think about that a little bit. You've stopped doing your normal activities for the past 2 weeks. That's not just, I broke up with my girlfriend. That's not, I got a bad grade on a test. That's, something's going on, right? So, and this is high school again, 2017, it was 17%, 2019, 25%, is up to 31% in 2021. The world was a messed up place then, right? And we all as adults, I think, had times when we were depressed. It's not shocking to us that the kids would be that way too. Middle school depression, kind of the same reflection, 21%, 25%, and 27%.
I should say 2021 on the top.
I missed that one again.
Yeah. So did I, because you said look this over,
Yeah.
so I apologize.
High school social support. So these are students that indicated that there's at least one teacher or adult in a school that they can talk to if they have a problem. 2015, it was 77%. We went up to 91% in 2019. Dropped down a little bit to 69% in 2021. Again, there was all this distancing going on, right? There was...
And they hadn't been in school.
They hadn't really been in school.
Yeah.
You know, if you were a freshman or a sixth grader, you didn't even know your teachers. You know, it was an interesting time. Middle school, not as drastic of a drop, but has been trending down from 80% in 2015 down to 68% in 2021. Some concerns, 11th grade, when we look at all the data, not just what we presented you tonight here, what was 11th grade in 2021 had a lot of high numbers. And we see this every so often, that there is a grade that has higher numbers than others. We've never really been able to figure it out. Teachers and principals can say, well, we can see it, you know, so it kind of makes sense. But it's one of the things that we have been working on with the school district to say, is there a way that we can start to predict these classes? Can we catch these classes when they're in elementary school and see what is it? Is it a lack of leadership? Is it too much leadership? Is it not as much activity in sports or not as much activity in arts? You know, is there something that we can catch early on and see indicators of it? So that will go into our kind of research on that. Minority communities, including the LGBTQ communities, numbers are all high. Not shocking, they're high everywhere in the country, but they're high. And those numbers are growing for Lodi. Not just the highness of them, but the number of kids who identify in those groups. Overall anxiety and depression, and we just talked about that. The depression numbers are really quite disturbing, I think, and something that we're really starting to dig into to see if that was a moment in time, if it continues. Seeing the numbers next spring is going to be huge, and hopefully DPS can get those out to us faster. DPI. Who's DPS? Are they anybody? DHS. DPS, that's like a crime scene. And then alcohol and other drugs stayed roughly the same or lower, which really shocked us. I mean, in our conversations and everything, we predicted that those were gonna go up with the times and everything, and so to see those kind of be flat, was interesting. Questions?
So when you say DPI, so you guys obviously give the survey to the kids.
We don't actually, within the schools they do it, so the middle,
DPI.
somebody will, yeah.
So this wasn't just Lodi numbers, this was
This was Lodi numbers.
This was Lodi.
This
Okay.
was Lodi numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, but there was 10 schools in the county that took it.
And six participated, yeah.
Oh, there's 10 that could have taken it, 6 participated, so districts can choose to opt in or opt out.
Okay.
And then it's given statewide and countrywide, so we don't see federal numbers, I don't believe, have we ever seen federal numbers?
We have, it takes a long time for them to come out, so a lot of times it's way out of date, but. And I have trend data for Lodi and trend data for the county for you.
Okay.
To look at, because sometimes it's interesting to compare Lodi to the county. When we first started down here, there was quite a big disconnect between, especially 30-day use. The 30-day use numbers of kids in Lodi tended to be higher than the county. And now that isn't necessarily the same. We're very much in line with the county on some of those areas. Sometimes the county's higher,
Yeah,
so,
yeah, we've actually made a big difference.
yeah.
Brian's gonna talk about some of the stuff we're doing, taking this information forward.
Yeah, just some stuff that we were working on, some of kind of the next steps. We're working on focus groups at the high school. We wanna talk to high school kids about these numbers and kind of pick their brains a little bit. That way we can better understand it and hopefully implement some changes. We're working with our community partners down the street here at Reach Out Lodi. They have expressed interest in working with us. They have seen some of the trends and they want to see if they could help, which is awesome. We're working with a committee at the middle school to also do some committees, some focus groups with the 7th and 8th graders. And then we are partnering with the Lodi School District to provide mental health first aid training to members of the community and then also members of the staff. And last, we'll be giving this exact presentation to the city council and then all other interested municipalities located within the school district's boundaries. So they've all received letters and if they want this, we'll definitely come and show them the numbers because it is a community thing. So
We'll also be hitting up the organizations that deal with youth, so Optimist, Rotary, all those clubs oftentimes will go into one of their meetings and give this presentation as well.
yes.
We feel that this level of information is good to get to the community because there's a lot of things that go on out there. The report, and Paul's gonna give you just a little section of it, but it's a binder full of data. And it takes us a while too to kind of put this all together. And we actually had a summit back in, when was that? December? November, where we had the school district, and then we also had like Columbia County nurses and Sheriff's Department and people kind of talk about the data and look at it.
What am I thinking? like a saliva?
I mean, I'm fine, but
My hands are always so dry, it's impossible.
Thank you.
I can take them.
How are you?
Lick my own fingers, I can.
Lick your own fingers, this is like your own fingers.
Thank you. Oh, so these are the actual questions.
These are, yes, some of them, these are the things that
Oh, I
we look
see.
at.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can, they have even like, do you wear a bike helmet and things, like, we just don't write everything. Let me see. Well, that's county, and these are Lodi, okay?
Do we get our picture minutes?
Absolutely, you can.
No, we do not need our picture. Yeah, perfectly fine. Here's Lodi.
Take a selfie, Mr. Rick.
Okay, oh, I see, okay.
Yep. So then we.
You should have some.
Yeah, this is.
Oh. I don't need it now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You're
Anything else, are we?
I left a long time ago.
Oh, these are
Questions for them?
They
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you
guys.
very much.
Appreciate it, thank you.
This is interesting.
Next on the agenda is public input. Purpose of the public input agenda item is for citizens and staff of the school district of Lodi to provide comments on any agenda item or to publicly address the Board of Education on items that pertain to school business. Portion of the meeting during which the comment of the public is invited shall be limited to 10 people unless extended by a vote of the board prior to the beginning of public input portion of the meeting. The amount of time allotted to each speaker will generally not exceed 3 minutes. If the speaker has questions for the board, they'll be duly noted and responses will be provided in an appropriate manner, but the board cannot respond to individual questions or individual comments as part of the public input agenda item. As an additional reminder, the board cannot take action on any item that is brought forth during the public input session or on any item that was not posted on the meeting agenda. If you're providing comments, we merely ask that you please come to the microphone and state your name and municipality of residence.
Nobody signed up.
Nobody signed up, thank you. Next, we have consent agenda items. Items in this section will be adopted as a group unless a board member requests a specific item to be removed from consent agenda and addressed separately. We have minutes from December 12th meeting. Payroll, under vouchers, we have the payroll checks, direct deposits, account payable checks, ACH payments, and credit card payments. There are no fundraiser requests. There is one fundraiser report for the Music Booster sales of treats at concerts. There is one field trip request for girls soccer to Marion College in Chicago Heights, Illinois in March, or end of March. Under committee recommendations for approval, we have summer school pay increase and payroll dates for the 2023-2024 school year. Under other, we have a updated memorandum of understanding with Divine Healthcare, Girls Swim Co-op agreement, and pre-ACT late start. Under resignation and retirement, we have retirement for accounts payable and resignations for the high school special education assistant. Co-curricular, we have track coaches. We have a head one, 2 assistants, one at 50%, one at 70%, one at 90%, and then in middle school we have 5 assistants. Under softball coaches we have a head, and then 3 volunteers and 1 assistant. And then we have a chemical hygiene officer, we have middle school fair coordinator, middle school forensics, and 2 mentors, teacher mentors. Community program crew, we have 1 new crew instructor. Under regular staff, we have elementary school educational assistant, limited term high school special education teacher, and middle school custodian. And under personnel other, we have we have requests for leave without pay requests for 5 people. Excuse me.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the approval of the resignation of Michaela Dial as high school special education assistant, and with the removal of the soccer field trip, the memo of understanding with Divine Savior, and pre-ACT late start date.
Second.
Second. So a motion by Angie and a second by Scott. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
I'm recusing.
One
I'm recusing
recused?
as well.
You're recusing
I'm
yourself?
in there as well.
Okay.
Volunteer, so.
Well, as a volunteer, that's different. So it passes 5-0. The items that were pulled, which one was first?
Okay, I just have written down the soccer field trip.
Soccer
first.
field trip.
Yeah, so their soccer team is planning on playing a game down in Chicago area, take a field trip. So Joe, maybe you can share more information.
Yeah, so they're planning on going to Marion Catholic, so I don't remember if you last year, if you can remember, there was a school from Chicago that had come up and played in Lodi. It was a really good experience for them. They had stayed overnight in Lodi that night, so they wanted to do the same and head down there. One of the things that I had questions about with the coach is how is this going to be paid for, because that was a little bit of a concern of mine. And they do plan on using Fund 21, which is their the money that they raise. So they plan on doing that, and they plan on having another fundraiser to be able to take care of the costs, especially the hotel costs. So they do have some money in their Fund 21 account. I can't tell you exactly what that is right now, but they're planning on using that. They just realized it was a really good experience last year when a team from a different state got an opportunity to come up to Lodi, and they wanted to have a chance to do the same. So
So this money's all gonna be from fundraised money, it's not any of the
All
district's money?
fundraised money, yep. I think he explained in the notes, or at
not
least
in
he explained to me, he didn't explain in the notes, that the only thing they're gonna have to pay for are a couple, like a lunch and a dinner. And that's it.
That the students will have to pay for?
Students will have to pay for.
Does anybody have any questions for Joe?
Do they have to take a bus to do this? Or do they
Um,
want to take a bus to do this?
They're gonna take a bus to do this. So he had looked into, I know, a coach bus, but that was a little bit too expensive, so they're gonna take a regular school bus. I believe it is against policy for.
It's policy
for-
that they have to
Yeah,
go.
they have to take a
They have
bus,
to take a bus.
so there's no way to get around it. Instead, like, parents cannot drive them down there.
But they can help fundraise.
But they can help fundraise,
Right.
for sure.
No, I'm sure they will.
Any other questions? All right, I'll make a motion to approve the girls' soccer trip to Marion College in Chicago Heights.
I'll second.
So a motion by myself and a second by Heather. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That's a 7-0. Next one,
Next one was the memo of understanding.
with Divine
Divine
Savior.
Savior.
So I was the one who pulled this one. So in that document, if you read through this thing, it doesn't say, it just says that the school will assist. It doesn't say who at the school will assist or how they're gonna assist. And none of that is defined in there. It doesn't say if it's students, teachers, staff, or admins. None of the detail is spelled out. It doesn't say who's gonna watch the students, if our staff is assisting, or where those people from Divine Savior are gonna end up in the school.
Oh, and it wants to use our bus service too, so I was
Well,
curious.
At their cost.
Yeah.
Oh, it is at their cost?
So-
Okay.
We added that.
It doesn't say anything about patients who are bedridden, who are ill, who are gonna need medical care, or who have dementia, or people at that age do cause physical harm to other individuals. None of that is spelled out in there. It also states about the district will also assist, the school district will also assist or use of the schools. It doesn't say which school, so it's assumed that it's the elementary school, but it says other schools could also be used, and none of that is spelled out on how that's defined. Utilizing the bus service, that's not defined in any way, although they will pay, it just doesn't say who they call and how that's all determined. And then the evacuation plan that was included is for them, but not for us. And so I just think it's incredibly vague and needs more detail in there, and so.
And we can do it, this is just a renewal of a.
Right.
That
Something that was already
That was
in.
already in place.
Right.
Never has
When I went through, I know the initial one didn't have them using our school buses, but didn't specify who paid for it.
Right.
So I made sure that they added that piece into it. But I can take it back to them and ask them to be more specific. My understanding in the conversations we had, I haven't had a lot with them because it's just renewal, is typically they're looking at, they would, if they have to evacuate, they're looking at evacuating across the street initially first
Right.
to Settlers Trail. And then they would come use the elementary school if needed, that we wouldn't have to be using a lot of our staff. But their staff is gonna be taking care of their patients. If patients need to go to the hospital, they'll go to the hospital. But our staff wouldn't be used, we would just use our space.
Right.
But we would have to assist, if we're gonna use this, free up space, like a gym space, we would have to assist that. The other piece of them using other buildings is like, for example, gas leak or something where they can't use, this, we may need to look at our other buildings.
If that evacuation also includes this area, then you would have to evacuate to another area.
Right.
Kind of like, what's the definition of help? Like it says, the school will help, but we need a little more, what is that? It doesn't have to be like super granular, I think, but, the safety of our students obviously is what our staff needs to take care of first.
I don't know if I can just say this, but I have knowledge of this from when it was Good Sam. It's a regulation that they have to have an emergency preparedness plan.
Right, but none of that's in here, though.
No, I'm just,
Right, yeah.
I'm just giving.
So, yeah, we'll follow up with them.
Okay. So, can I make a motion to table this then?
Sure
Does
can.
that sound good? So I'll make a motion to table this until we get more information.
I'll second.
Okay, so I made a motion to table, Angie is seconding. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? So that passes 7-0. What's the last one?
Okay, the last one is the pre-ACT late start
Okay.
on that date.
Yeah, so I'll turn that over to Joe and Dr. Carls to talk about. the pre-ACT dates.
So the pre-ACT is the state assessment that's going to be given this year for grades 9 and 10. One thing that's really nice about the pre-ACT, when you combine all of those tests together, it's actually shorter than the previous grade 9 and 10 assessment that was given, the ACT Aspire. However, one of the downfalls of this assessment is that it has to be given in a single seating unless you're a student who has an individualized education plan and has extended days. So what we used to do in the past for the ACT Aspire is we would give certain chunks of the test during the core academic block. So maybe you would go into math class and you would do the math block, the math section of the ACT Aspire, and then you would go and you would do the science and you would do the English. It worked out really nice for us in that capacity. With this structure, we have to give it in one sitting. So when you think about kind of the late start schedule that we currently do with the 11th graders for the ACT, to be able to get all of our staff, to get all of the students in 9th and 10th grade to sit down and do a single sitting test for this new pre-ACT, we're looking at doing a late start schedule for that. That's the reason behind it.
And my question was just, and I kind of just asked Vince separately, but I wanted to bring it up, is could we do it at the same time that the juniors are taking their actual ACT? And he said that's not possible, correct?
Just from a staffing perspective,
Okay, yeah.
Especially when you start to think about some of our students who require accommodations, and that may require a setting where you only have a few students in a room, or sometimes it's a one-on-one situation, so our staffing needs get really spread out when you start to consider some of those things.
So that's for the 9th and 10th, right?
The pre-ACT is for the 9th and 10th.
And then the 10th graders take practice ACT, right? So they're gonna do that too?
They do.
That is what is on the
Okay.
schedule
Yes.
right
Okay.
now. It is an interesting conversation going forward. We have a team at the high school that comes together monthly just to talk about our state assessments and make sure we're fully prepared for some of these changes. And one of the pieces of information in the fields that we want to get this year is, does the pre-ACT give us information that's useful and the type of experience for students that would prepare them for the ACT as an 11th grader, where maybe we could look at that in the future of, is that something that is still of value? We think it currently has been, to give them that full-length ACT practice as a 10th grader so that they know what it's gonna feel like when they come in as 11th grader. And we get that data back and we can use some of that data to be responsive. The pre-ACT is better aligned to the college career readiness standards, which are the same standards that the ACT is aligned to. And so we very well may find that at the end of this year that we're getting some of that relevant information that we got previously with that full-length 10th grade experience for the ACT practice.
Well, as a parent, my vote is to have them take that pre-ACT, or the practice ACT too, because I think that woke my kids up. Oh, maybe I should study a little bit more next year.
And our student board member maybe at some point would like to have some input on it. I know this is random.
Yeah,
you know,
we're still figuring our way through it all too.
I mean, I do think,
Not a student anymore.
I'm sorry. No. I do think it is definitely valuable to have them take a practice ACT. I found it especially valuable because as a student, I have taken state required standardized tests before, but it definitely did wake me up to the time constraints of the ACT, just kind of how important it kind of is, especially to if you decide to go on to college and different colleges that do require to take an ACT. I just also think that we need to have more practice for ACT as well. Because just taking a practice test and then not going to further that, I feel like, at least from my experience and from what I know a lot of my classmates have felt, is that they felt a little bit underprepared. And, because most of the time they don't give you any, strategies going into a practice one, so it's just kind of they throw you in raw, so you don't really, have any idea of, what's going on here, what do I need to know? And then after you take it, there's not a lot of prep beyond that either.
So I think that we do need to take a practice ACT, but then there also needs to be more beyond that as well.
Appreciate that feedback, and that echoes some of the conversations we've been having locally, but probably pull in a student or two and get some feedback.
For sure. And that's definitely, Nick talked a little bit about the group that's meeting monthly, and we have been talking about some of those things. And then the question comes, I think the practice ACT is really important, and to be able to take that on the same day, and we can proctor it all on the same day. One of the questions that we talked about a little bit was whether or not we were gonna have kids take the pre-ACT on April 11th, and then have them take the practice ACT. So the 10th graders were getting the practice ACT on March 7th, and then having to take the pre-ACT on April 11th, and we're not sure. That might be somewhat difficult for them. They might get a little bit more, it might be more difficult for them to take it again, and whether we can move that practice ACT to maybe the fall. So that's been a part of our discussion as well, so.
Anybody else have any other questions on it?
Do we need to make a motion to
Yes,
approve
we
that?
approve it, yes.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve that late start date for the pre-ACT.
I'll second that.
Motion by Angie and a second by Terry. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Passes 7-0. Communication, administrator reports. Student board rep is first this month.
First.
On the point.
All right, okay. So just to start off, I would like to bring attention to some of our students who signed their letters of intent before winter break. So to start, Reagan Zastra will be continuing to play volleyball at Bryant and Stratton College in Wauwatosa. Kaylin Tatro will be attending Viterbo College or University to play soccer, and Lily Strong will be attending Minnesota State University in Mankato for track and field. Also, two students from Lodi High School, Madison Berry and Madison McMorris, were selected to serve on the state FACT board. So very proud of them. I'm also a member of FACT, so yeah. And Rock the Band was this past Saturday, which a local band called the Retrospects, as a lot of you probably know, collaborated with our high school band for a performance that was also a fundraiser for the band's Disney World trip over spring break.
Can I interrupt you real quick? Did you have anything to do with that, or did you participate or see it, or?
A couple of my friends were in it, so I did see it, but I was not in it. I am not a band. I don't do band or choir.
So can you give us that, because this is brand new this year, can you give us any perspective on that from your opinion? From a student perspective?
You know,
Sorry to put you on the spot.
From my perspective, I thought that it gave our band a good opportunity to play with some other things, but I mean, I don't really criticize it, because I think that it's good that our band gets to play with other like musicians and other performers, but it was a little bit awkward at first, you know, just because like you're playing with an actual band and the kids, and it's just a little bit, but I think they got over it quickly, so overall I think it went well.
Do you know if they practiced together beforehand, or did they just go for it that night?
I don't know if they practiced together beforehand.
Okay.
I do know that they did practice a lot, and a lot of the students that I talked to were like very nervous about how it was gonna go, especially, playing with like
first time.
Yeah, first time and professional musicians and stuff, but I don't know, I thought that they didn't show it on stage at all, so.
I wanted to go.
This Saturday, our Lodi mock trial team will have their Lodi tournament at the Sauk County Courthouse, which is pretty cool. Not saying that just because I'm on mock trial, but and then last thing I have to talk about is that finals week is approaching at the high school from the 17th to the 19th. And with that, our Lodi High School Link Crew, which is an organization of upperclassmen, juniors and seniors who are aiding our freshmen. So they did the freshman orientation, they ran that. And so every year before COVID, they would put on a Cocoa and Cram, which is where like the Wednesday before our finals from like 3:30 to 5, it's an opportunity for all the freshmen to come and study for finals with older classmates who have taken the finals already to kind of ease their worries going into finals week. So for the first time since COVID, that will be happening again this Wednesday. So.
Nice.
That's great. Thank you. Lodi Elementary OSC.
Yeah, so a couple of things on the board report. You can see Stuff the Snowman was a success, partnering with Reach Out Lodi. And then also a big shout out to Mr. Potter and Mr. Hand for all the work they do in STEAM. There's some evidence of our students enjoying that opportunity. And then also we had a special guest, some special guests for read-in, including Mr. Breinig, and some festive activities at LES and OSC. Then just also wanted to highlight the library and the work that Mrs. Good does, and it's good to have a consistent FIAD teacher at the building, and so Mr. Endress has been introducing students to a lot of different activities, and this is just one of what has been going on at Lodi Elementary School in OSC. And then the concert, Mr. Olds and Mrs. Weber did a great job, and so the links are there if you didn't get a chance. And then third grade book club. So they're a great way for those new families to our building to connect, not only with each other but also with staff and get familiar with the building. And so there's another one coming up in the next month or two for those families that can choose to be part of or not. And so just a really neat opportunity that the third grade teachers put together.
Okay, thank you. Lodi Middle School.
All right, good evening, board. First thing I want to do is recognize our students of the month for November who were recognized for kindness, and we thank them for all their kindness in making our school a great place to be. I want to recognize a new staff member we have. We hired educational assistant Mike Anhalt, and he was in the private sector in the pharmaceutical industry and retired from that and decided that he wanted to come back and give back to education. So we appreciate all of his services. Sometimes educational assistants, especially when they hit the ground mid-year, like you're going, like, and you step in, and with limited training. So we appreciate them and his flexibility. Middle school is running iReady testing this week and next week. This week we're going to focus on reading, and next week we're going to focus on math. So we're excited to see those results. All parents. Students who take that test will send home a report at the semester along with the report card to show what kind of growth we've made so far this year. We also had our winter concert, and I want to acknowledge Ashley Gulbertson and Hunter Alds for all they did to get our kids ready. It was a great concert, and it was at the high school, and the auditorium is like full for the 6th grade, and it's full for the 7th and 8th. So I know Ashley at one point is like, maybe we'll combine, and I'm like, after this one, no we won't. We won't be able to. There'll be a lot of standing people. We're also going to have a blood drive at the middle school, so as just a part of being, serving our community, we decided that we were going to give having a blood drive a chance. And I don't know that it will directly have a great impact on our kids because they can't donate blood, but the Red Cross is going to come in and talk about donating blood and try to advocate for students to try to bring people in. And as of right now, 23 of the 47 spots are filled right now. So we do have quite a few appointments open, but we've also filled quite a few already too. And I'm just peeking through here what else I want to highlight. I want to highlight 8th grade ELT class. Sarah Gleis partnered with Mrs. Brandt's 4K class and had students go over and read with them one day, which is a great experience for them. I also want to acknowledge Adam Steinberg for coming to speak with our students, our WIN students that were reading about cells, and Adam came and provided some background knowledge in terms of things he does with that. And I think that's all from the middle school.
Lodi High School.
We also had a blood drive just recently that was run by our FFA, and 42 units of blood were donated, and which saved about 126 lives. And I just wanted to highlight Paige Sweat, who spent a lot of time working on that with Mr. Anderson, so I really appreciate her efforts. Anna did mention something about FACT. We have 2 students, Madison and Madison, that will be in the state board, which is awesome. I really appreciate the fact that they've gotten involved and other students have gotten involved in FACT. We do have Student of the Month, so their names are there. I'll just let you read through those. We really appreciate our teachers that are willing to nominate these students, and we're nominating them right now for the month of December, and that'll come out tomorrow. We also had a winter concert, and again, Kate McCrae and Mr. Doug Hafe and all the efforts they do to put that together. The highlight for me is always the Hallelujah chorus, which happens at the end, where former Lodi High School students and parents get to go up on stage and sing that. It's always really amazing, so I appreciate them doing that. In the classroom, we had some opportunities for students in the tech ed department, human geography, band and chorus, and physical education. Mr. Lick's tech ed class had the National Guard visit, and Sergeant, I want to make sure I say this correctly, Busarelli, Specialist Hansen, who's Jack Hansen, who was a former Lodi student. They brought a Humvee in for our students to be able to explore. Human geography got back to a field trip that I really thought was an amazing field trip for our students pre-COVID, and that is they were able to visit the Islamic Center of Madison, the Beth Israel Center, Jewish Synagogue, and the Deer Bark Buddhist Temple. So when our Thai students are talking a little bit about their experiences in different lands, it's a great experience for them. So if we are going to get as close as we can to learning about some different religions, going to Madison and visiting those places was really important to our students. Some things that our band and chorus have done in the last month, I'll let you read through that. And then in physical education, so our physical education students in Mrs. Goheen's individual Phi-Ed class get an opportunity to scuba dive. So there is a gentleman named Donald Johnson from Breezeway Bubbles that visits our school a couple times during the year and teaches them to scuba dive in the pool. And that's something that I would really like to try to do. Figure I probably could if I'm principal, so I want to really try sometime. Force my way in there, but the kids really don't need me to be in a swimsuit, so I probably will not do that. Santa Project. I know last year we recognized Pam Cunningham for the Santa Project. It's an amazing thing. They had more people, 110 families that were impacted by the Santa Project, and you can see our boys basketball team that donated some items, so I'm really proud of them. Anna did mention some of our college signings. The one that she didn't mention because it was on a different day was Zane Licht, and Zane will be attending the University of North Dakota State where he'll be wrestling, and featured in the photo are his parents, Jamie and Rhonda. And then with Cody Endress transitioning to the elementary school, we have a new special ed teacher. Her name is Carson Bainbridge. We feel very lucky to get her. She has some experience in Verona and in Madison, and there's a little bio from her, so feel free to read that. We had gotten back to our Leadership Council post-game parties, which was a lot of fun. We had 8 teams participating, so from 9:30 till about 11 o'clock at night. There are some chaperones that stuck around. I was there, Mr. Marshall and Mr. Kittleson, to help those students have a great time in their volleyball tournament. There are advocate videos there. And then I'm not going to go through the entire high school finals week, but it is a little bit of a grind. One of the things that we do allow our students to do is they get to leave for lunch because it's very difficult to have 9th through 12th graders during one lunch period. So they will be leaving for lunch, so we let their parents send them know to drive safe if they're heading somewhere. And then finally, if you haven't had a chance to look at the video link, it says Thailand Exchange. There was about a 14-minute video that was produced by the English program at Sangwon Ying School in Suphanburi. And I noticed for the week that I was there that there's always somebody with a video camera and a camera following you around, taking pictures, doing video all of the time. So a 14-minute video seems short to me. So make sure you watch that. They do an amazing job, and it really highlights some of the things that they talked about in the presentation. So that's the high school.
Did you say Jack Hansen is an alumni, right?
Yes, he is.
Yeah. So I know that in Science Club, bring back alumni also.
Sure.
We have huge resource of alumni that we should be tapping into.
And there was one more thing I want to mention about the rock concert. I was able to go to the rock concert, which it was a great experience. It was a very unique experience. I think the kids couldn't appreciate some of the 70s and 80s music that was being played, except for when they heard AC/DC or something like that. But they did, you could see them loosening up as the concert went along. It's kind of odd sitting up there with your instrument watching this band right next to you with all the lights on you. But they got used to it and they loosened up a little bit, and I think they had a good time by the end. So it's a good experience.
Curriculum.
The first item on the agenda is just in reference to the winter assessment benchmark window, which we're in now, and you will hear from each principal regarding those results, what we do with those results. You hear from Derek a little bit about that, and then also we'll see some of that aggregate data brought into our school scorecards here at the end of this month. CISA 5 was recently able to offer a federal grant opportunity that will allow districts to provide one administrator a certification through the AIM Institute for Learning and Research, which is really, the goal is to highlight the most recent literacy instructional design research that's out there. It's a great opportunity, it's a free opportunity, it was one that was offered to our district. It's something that I'm going through that right now, it's a 30-hour course. I've found that there's some information that, yep, it just reinforced things that I already knew, but there's some information that's new in there, and so I found that exciting to learn about that. I'm just at the beginning stages of it so far. One of the things with this, though, is there is the potential in connecting with CISA 5 that there will be additional federal dollars available in the future that we could continue to apply for, and that we could have up to 8 to 10 additional seats in the future that could be specifically leveraged to provide this training, if once I've gone through it I feel really good about it, to potentially educators or some of our other leadership in the district in the future. So I'm thinking could end up being a future professional practice goal option, but kind of using this opportunity that I have to vet it out first. Next part that's on there is I just want to say a big thank you to JP Fossbender and Elise Kearney and some of our students from AP US History at the high school. We are doing a peer tutoring pilot. This is something that JP put on my radar this summer, and we kind of gave him the green light to go ahead and give it a try. And he's coordinating with Elise Kearney, and they are connecting with students. And those students that are doing this from the AP US History course are connecting with students from the AP World History course, and they're doing some peer tutoring around various AP writing strategies, which is something that we're trying out, and potentially, if it goes really well, maybe we can expand to other areas.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. And then the last one, I just wanted to give you an update. Last year, at the tail end of last school year, in conversations with the board, the curriculum committee of the board, we had decided what we wanted to do is a little bit of a self-review related to gifted and talented or advanced learner structures and supports that we have here in the school district of Lodi. So the Department of Public Instruction provides a template for a district to do a self-review on that. So I've been meeting with the principals in each building and a couple of other of their educator members, and we're just going through that template to try to just kind of self-analyze our structures and supports that we have. And already it's been fruitful in seeing some of the wonderful things that we do, but it's also giving us some ideas of things that we could potentially do for serving that population of students in the future. So that's a conversation. I'm planning on bringing that information at this month's curriculum committee of the board meeting, bringing that information for discussion with that group of what we found going through that self-review.
Okay, thank you. LCAT, do we have more for LCAT?
Well, I have a little thing here. Brian sat on a panel and presented at the Building the Heart of Successful Schools Conference on December 8th, which was up in Wisconsin Dells. Brian discussed the success of the in-depth program in the Lodi High School's FACT group. Brian has been invited to sit on the panel by the State Director of In-Depth and FACT Programs. That's an honor. This opportunity was funded by Prevention and Response Columbia County. The FACT group has been very busy, that he did tell you all about that. And Madison Berry, who's a sophomore, and Madison McMorris are both on the FACT board. So that's really exciting, and asked to be on the big FACT board. So congratulations, Madison and Madison.
Student Services is not here. You have the report to read.
He's excused.
Yeah, Lodi Primary School?
So we too had a winter concert, and I just think it's pretty amazing when you think about, as you hear of these kids going to all the other grades and where it goes. I mean, when you have 4K students that are getting up on that stage, and then kindergarten first and second, and the courage it takes to get out there and see all of them, and Mrs. Weber just does an amazing job picking out songs and teaching the kids to feel such confidence in themselves in doing that. So that was a huge highlight in December. As you've heard, we are beginning our winter assessments. We did do a dive into the FNP part of the fluency part of the Fountas and Pinnell assessment in December as a team. Kind of like we had looked at the iReady, we wanted to look at that, the Fountas and Pinnell, and that, just as a reminder, is where the students will read a story and the teachers will be looking to see if the kids are reading it accurately. They'll check their comprehension, but they'll also check to see how they are reading it, kind of their rate as well as their intonation, and do they pause when they get to a period and all of that. And fluency just really helps with comprehension, so we just had some good conversations about what that looked like. Some other things are, I guess the last part was just the district workforce. One of the things that I was trying to do is really get a chance to know my staff better. So the last month they did that colors personality test. This month it was the 5 love languages at work, and it was fascinating because I asked the primary school, like, how many people knew about this, and majority of them all knew what work, or what the love languages are. Just a show of curiosity, how many of you know about the love languages? Okay, so this is not a dating, this is not a romantic, but it really is talking about is, when you're working as teams, what are the things that can help people feel valued and feel appreciated, and just ways to be acknowledged in different ways. And so it's just this way to help me. So teachers, we went through these different ones, and they just wrote a little note to let me know is when they're doing a great job, what are the things that help boost them and help make them feel valued and appreciated. And it was fascinating because every single one of them, the number one thing that they all talked about was the coffee cart. And they said because it's an act of service, somebody doing something, there's the surprise factor of what's being a part of it, as well as just that like one-on-one meeting with the individuals there. So the coffee cart is what is definitely like, I think, the peak of how we can show appreciation, and so just trying to find other ways to do that. So. One thing I'm going to quickly share too is today was our first day trying the new attendance protocol that we're piloting at the primary school. So a huge thank you to Jean Winters and Andy Giese and Jen Annan. So at the primary school, we're trying to help consolidate things and make it easier for families and then for the office. And so what will happen is that families will fill out a Google form if their child is going to be absent, and so it just basically has their child's name, their grade, illness or whatever that might be the reason that they're not at school. It literally cut down, I can't even describe the sound in the office. I mean, there's different sounds in the office too, but just as far as the morning routine, it was just amazing on this very first day. Just how it's just streamlining all of the efforts. So just a huge shout out to the parents that were using that, and we're going to pilot it and see where it goes from there.
And they fill it out online.
They fill it out online, yep.
So instead of calling and
6 in the morning.
Yep, they can do it anytime. So I've already looked for tomorrow. There's a couple absences tomorrow, but it's instead of a phone call or an email. And so that's the piece where, when you think about when a child is absent, we have to account for all of the different students. So you're answering the phone calls, you're taking the attendance, we've got the Pledge of Allegiance going on. You need to find everybody by this amount of time. And so those phone calls we want to have that communication, but it takes a lot of time to get through all of those. Whereas this just streamlines it, and we can start to take attendance more accurately, or not more accurately, but more quickly, efficiently.
So when we move this to the high school, and the high school students do it for themselves?
Yeah, I don't know. We're just modeling this here.
Fingerprint.
Retinal scans? Sorry, I couldn't pass that one.
It only works
Well, it works at the younger grades. District administrator.
Yeah, just a reminder, we're scheduling a board administrative retreat on January 30th. We'll do it at the high school. We'll have food, probably pizza, a meal together, just to kind of work through some activities, just some team building activities for the board and the administrative staff. We sit in these meetings a lot, right? And so to do that, have some conversation, but then also kind of really review the district's progress on our strategic plan on pillars 3, 4, and 5 of the strategic plan, and spend some time on that, and we can report back out at our next board meeting on that. And the reason I say pillars 3, 4, and 5 is in the February board meeting, we will have a staff here, impact team members from each of the buildings, and we will do another gallery walk for those of you who are on the board. Everybody was on the board last June, so we'll do another gallery walk where we'll have some staff talking about pillars 1 and pillar 2 that are going on in our strategic plan and the scorecards and the work that's being done. It's always great for the board to hear from the staff themselves versus just hearing it secondhand from us. So they'll be here in February. Neola we started that transition process last time. The policy committee has a lot of policies on for not next week, but the week after, the 25th. So you'll see a significant amount of policies coming your way. I had a whole couple paragraphs on the concerts, but they were all covered. They did a wonderful job. Inclement weather, I want to just say thank you to our families and staff and students for the flexibility on our late start that happened last Thursday. You know, we had to make a decision about delaying or canceling school because of a gas leak down at the bus company, and that's not something you know at 4:30 in the morning, right? So typically we try to make a decision about school by 5:15, 5:30 at the latest. This one was, I got the call at 6:15, so it was very late. So just really appreciate people being able to adjust. But as you know, we've already had 3 inclement weather days. Hopefully that's it, but I'm a realist. But we'll have to make one of those up. So we'll be adding a day to the end of our school year. That's at least the plan, is to start there. Second, if we have one here between now and the middle of February, we'll look at our collaboration day in March, and then we'll look at adding another day, and then we'll go from there. The December 15th inclement weather day, I really hoped for a 2-hour delay, but we had downed tree branches and trees and power lines in some of our back roads, so really couldn't have school that day. For my house, it was really easy to get here, right? But for most of the district, there's other places. And then obviously the storm that came through the 22nd, 23rd took us out for a couple of days.
So at this point, we're just gonna add.
We're just gonna add a day. Right now, we're supposed to be done. The students' last day is on a Monday, the 5th, so we'll just add it to Tuesday, the 6th. Our collaboration days are very valuable to us, but if we need to, we'll then take a March day, and then we'll add on. And if we need to, we'll then start looking at adding minutes. That's all I have.
Thank you. So the school board convention is next week, right?
Correct.
Okay, coming up
Yeah,
fast.
next week it is.
So myself and Angie and Terry and Heather and Vince and Brent, who's not here, will be attending. There is a sheet for us about picking a place to go eat. Make sure you do that for Mo before you leave tonight. And that is all I have. Next, we'll go to the agenda. So 9:01 is COVID mitigation.
Yeah, so our district's medical advisory committee met on January 3rd and reviewed our current COVID and illness numbers and our mitigation strategies. The committee is recommending no changes at this time. The committee did really want to give a shout out to the work the district's been doing tracking the different illnesses, which I think is what we're talking with, Amy's talking about having that Google spreadsheet, like really getting more information about kids' symptoms, so we can really track the different illnesses that are going on and then get that information out. And actually, we got a shout out last Friday at the Dane County Superintendent's meeting. UW Hospital was like, you guys need to talk what Lodi's doing about tracking illnesses and making sure, and sharing that information with their families so families can make good decisions or decisions for their health. So, but there's no new recommendation.
So I've been on the board, this will be my 9th year, and I've heard that over and over again over 9 years, that you need to look what Lodi's doing, you need to look what Lodi's doing. So we always seem to be out ahead of the curve on something like that. So that's great, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of schools in Dane County are going like, whatever Lodi's doing.
Right, no, they don't care. I'm just saying that I've heard that phrase so many times.
Yeah, it was a nice shout out for, and again, it's based on the work of our school nurses and our office staff. It has nothing to do with
people.
Gene Winters and Janelle Schmiam and then other office staffs in each of the buildings who are tracking this information and then putting it together.
Thank you.
So bottom line, this agenda item, the board really doesn't need to take any action because it's not changing anything.
Next, we have open enrollment limits for the 2023-2024 school year.
Yeah, we are required every year at the January board meeting to designate for the following school year the number of open enrollment regular education spaces by grade and the number of open enrollment special education spaces by program or services. So our recommendation is there. It's something we do every year, and I would recommend approval.
Okay.
It's in there, it's technical, sorry.
I can do it.
Yeah.
I move that per criteria outlined in Board of Education Policy number 423, public school open enrollment, and as required under section PI 36.042, Wisconsin Administrative Code sections PI 36.065A and Wisconsin statutes S 18.51A, the Board of Education for the School District of Lodi hereby adopts the administration-designated regular and special open enrollment education spaces for the 2023-2024 school year.
I will second that.
Motion by Angie and a second by Heather. Any further discussion?
So if we have people that move into our district before this school year, because some of these spaces are like only 5 available in 7th grade, would that change it, or we take that into account when we?
Right, we try to take that into account. We can't change it after the fact, so we have to set it every January. So this really became an issue during COVID. Like, so there were schools, all of some people were like, and they're like, some schools had done this like they were supposed to, and other schools just hadn't paid attention. So then people couldn't deny kids coming in, so they were like, both ways, virtually. Some schools had virtual and people were just flocking to them. Or some people had person, they were flocking, vice versa. So no, but we do try to take into account that we, every year, have some migration in, migration out. But if students move in, if families move in, we take them, right? We have no choice, it has nothing to do with this. This is as if you're you live in a different district and you were trying to open enroll in. And obviously we want as much enrollment as we possibly can, but if it's gonna cost us to add a section, that's where you start looking at numbers as like, how many more kids we're anticipating it's gonna cost us before we have to add like a teacher.
Oh, sure.
And so now it becomes cost prohibitive for us to do that.
So if we filled all of these up and say we hire a teacher that can only come if their children are able to come to our schools, that we have no space, could we make an amendment to this, like a special allowance, or is this just once it's done?
That would be a good question for our legal counsel.
Okay, maybe if the time comes.
Yeah, if at times we would walk through that process if we need to.
But if they were coming to the district, that wouldn't be an issue, right?
No, if they lived outside the district.
Yeah, I think she's saying if they lived outside the district. For example, if they lived in Poinette, but were coming to work here and their kids lived in Poinette.
Bring their kids to the district.
Right, yeah, it's easy.
That's all I had.
We've would never really hit any of these limits. We set them, but the bigger ones really are gonna be like special education. I mean, that's ones where like one kid can sometimes push you into another staff member because you'll have to.
Sure, sure.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Passes 7-0. WASB resolution discussion.
Yeah, so.
Did anyone else feel like crying when reading
Yes,
this?
I think I did.
Pull out your hair, or?
Really?
Yeah, I only had to read it 81 times each.
That's right.
Being a new board member, I'm going to start looking at these way earlier next time.
So the board can decide how much time they want to spend on this tonight, right? You spent enough time, just as you're talking about, right? You just spent a lot of time on it, so either, there's a couple options, right? So just for the public, the Wisconsin Association of School Board has proposed resolutions that they as a group will vote on, and our delegate is Terry Haig. So Terry Haig will be part of that assembly where they vote on these resolutions, whether the Wisconsin Association of School Boards should advocate for these things or such. And so the board was given those resolutions to look at and vote on individually to give guidance to Ms. Haig. So she can just follow that guidance, right? For every single one of them has at least 4 votes, one way or the other, and she can just follow that guidance. Or if the board would like, anything that's close, you could have a longer discussion about as well, if you would feel like it. So it's really up to what the board would like to do.
I guess the one that I was probably concerned about the most was the voter education.
And that was, what was the number on that one?
4 yes, 1 no, and 1 didn't answer.
No, I mean, what was the?
2302. It's on the first page of the.
I guess
Should students be taught voter education?
the reason I'm a little hesitant on that is we want to keep politics out of school, and I feel like that's going to bring teachers it's gonna open a door to possibly bring a little bit of bias into the education of voting. So that just makes me a little nervous.
The way we've done voter education in the past, right, has been on a volunteer system. There's nothing about candidates. It's about how to vote and why you want to go vote. That's all. There's nothing about this person runs for this and this person stands for that.
So Joel, what class do they actually address this in?
Well, I guess government, social issues, United States history, several classes, and even in the middle school, there's a little bit. I remember when I taught 8th grade, we talked a little bit about the electoral college system, where it came from, what it looks, how it's different from the local to the state to the federal government as far as voting, things like that. Just more the process than anything else.
We do teach a lot of that in Lodi already.
Yeah.
It's other schools that don't.
I just always feel like, I think it's hard to keep mandating that schools teach this in a particular way. It's like, okay, now like, I think there's many resolutions that come through the WASB and other, where they're like, we like resolutions that students should learn this, or they should be taught, and they should be taught that, and it's on top of the DPI standards. And I mean, I do think that voter education is important. I'm just like, oh, here's another rule. Now, how are we checking those boxes appropriately in which classes? So I just always feel like that when some of these resolutions come up to teach particular things, it's like, sure, but now there's another rule, and that's my thought sometimes on that.
Anna, what are your thoughts on that? Because I know you came and helped me run an election.
I did. I haven't taken GSI yet, which is the class that Mr. Jelinek is referencing, so I don't know how much voter education there is in that class. I have taken U.S. History and AP U.S. History, so I do know that there's a little bit of voter education, but I do think that a lot of students, at least this year, don't have an enthusiasm to vote. So, I mean, again, I don't know, like, what is taught in GSI, and there might be a lot of curriculum there, but from what I've seen, I think that there would be, like, more knowledge to that, just because a lot of kids, they're afraid of voting because they don't know how to do it, they don't understand the impact of voting, they just don't, and they kind of see it as like, well, why would I vote if, like, my opinion's not really going to be taken into account? So, I think that it's very important that we do like, voter education. And, like, from what I've seen of our social studies teachers, I don't think that they really give an opinion of one way or the other. They just tell you kind of how it is and how voting, and that's how it should be. So, at least that's how I see it, in my opinion. But I do think that voter education is very important, and I think that that's something that we should continue on with.
So you think it's the process of voting itself that is kind of a barrier for kids to go vote, just because they don't understand it?
I think that is, yeah. I think that a lot of kids, like, especially in, like, when you're a senior and you're getting ready to go to college and graduate high school and start, like, this new phase of life where you're becoming an adult, like, that process and, like, the other processes that you have to learn is just something that's very scary, and a lot of kids, like, they don't want to go out and learn it on their own because it's kind of like accepting that that's, like, you're an adult now, you get to go vote, you have to go do this, you have to go register. So I think that scares a lot of kids, and I think talking about it openly would help kind of bridge that divider of being afraid.
That's good perspective.
That's good.
Thank you.
And I think reading the entire resolution as presented by the school district, they talk a lot about if you live in a house where people vote and then people talk about it, you're more likely to vote. And not everybody has that tradition in the family or whatever, and so that it kind of brings everybody up to that level of how do you go about that, because it's not always super easy. You have to go figure out where to go. What do you need to register, like you said.
Terry, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. I looked through the 4s and the 2s and kind of looked at it, and like last year, I wasn't the delegate yet, but I went along with our delegate to everything to see how it all worked, and there is a massive amount of discussion. And so even when, if I vote a certain way on things, there might be, and last year too, there was certain districts that it was specific almost to that little district not like the big picture, and those got voted no, so. But I mean, I've worked at the polls over the various years, and it is really cool to see people come in, the 18-year-olds come in and register. But, I mean, knowing how big the school district is and how big the amount of people in that poll could have come, there was kids that came, but not everybody came for sure. I mean, 5 or 6, which was great that they did, but, you know. And I mean, yeah, the people can talk about voting, but I think sometimes the parents just run out the door and go vote that day, and there isn't a big discussion about the process.
Sure.
It's like making that first doctor's appointment for
Mhm.
physical yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that that happens.
There's another big step. So does anybody else want to give Terry direction, or is that it?
Oh, I mean, how would that work? Would we have to pull out each one and re-vote?
Well, they're right
No,
here.
so like Heather just
We
brought that
don't
one
have to
up,
go through all of
and we
them.
had a discussion. Are there any more that anyone would like to discuss? That's
Like
my question.
2309 was one that, there were 40, there's just.
Wait, but does anybody have anything they want to say about it?
So the universal free school meals.
Yes.
Do you think that that would hurt, I guess you would call them a business, not an organization like Taylor? So we contracted them to come in. Would that,
They just did 2 years of free.
That would actually help them.
it would help
Yes.
them?
Yes, because everybody would be paid, everybody have a free meal, so our numbers would go up. The amount of people who, so what happened during the pandemic was everybody got to eat for free.
Right.
The federal government covered the cost of that. So our numbers went up significantly. The amount of our kids who ate through Taher went up significantly.
Yes.
Which was good for kids, because more kids ate.
They ate.
It was good for Taher, because the more kids they have go through, the more, and for us, financially, it's better for our program as well, the more kids that we have eating.
Wasn't it certain types of food though they were only allowed to serve? Like they were kind of restricted to what?
That's not gonna change, right? We have to follow the USDA guidelines for reimbursable meals. So the kids helps reimburse, because we get reimbursement on certain meals now. That's not that universal free, but we get reimbursement on certain meals, which helps keep the cost down, but we have to serve certain things.
It helped, you guys know me by now. I have to talk through all these things. I
That's
literally
fine.
talked that one out loud to myself.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to
That's why
say,
we're here.
I want to say about the universal free meals, this is probably being really cynical, but one concern I have is that if it's federal money coming in for the school meals, it's an opportunity to say, oh, okay, now you schools are getting so much more federal money, look at all this money you're getting, when it's actually literally just going to the meals, but that's really kind of.
I'm always nervous about that
kind
too.
of like.
My thought was that it was
perception.
taking from something else.
That they're what? I'm sorry.
It's that those funds are coming from somewhere
Oh.
else, because how do they have it just to give it to
They-
us now?
right. They would have to come from somewhere, right? They don't have to come
Right.
from our current budget or education, but they're gonna, it's taxpayer money somewhere.
Right, but I mean, like, if they're giving it to this area of the school, now that's gonna be cut off because they're gonna give it to this area of the school.
That's not,
That's
I don't
what-
think that's.
We don't get a whole lot of federal funding.
No, very little.
Right,
Very tiny.
but it can be said, oh, look how much money the government is giving the schools.
Yeah.
But every report that has come out, since we had 2 years of free food, has been positive.
It is a
That
net
has
positive
been
for students,
Huge.
yes.
It's been good for kids.
It's
Huge
been
positive.
hugely positive, and I will say this from working there, there are people that will not fill out the free and reduced
Right.
lunch, they just will not. Part of it sometimes is they won't quite make it, but things are a disaster at home, so the kids aren't getting, the groceries aren't being gotten, the kids aren't being covered, the school lunch money's not coming to school. And then there's other people who are just embarrassed to fill out free and reduced lunch. So this levels the playing field for everybody. Everybody gets treated the same, nobody gets looked at different, and nobody has to sign papers saying that they feel like they're not doing it. So,
We were fortunate enough in our district to have universal free meals again this year, and our numbers are double
Right.
what they are when we don't have it.
How does some get it and some don't?
There was a grant that DPI offered last year that we qualified for, we applied for.
Because you had a lot of free and reduced
Right.
lunch people, and Lodi doesn't, we don't have a lot, but we have them.
And again, you're welcome, anybody's welcome to talk about any of these they want to. I'm not trying to shut it down. Does anybody else have anything else on any of the other ones?
I'm sure these same things are gonna come up when
Oh,
those
yeah.
people all meet, from 7 to 9:30 on Tuesday night,
Because you'll be
going
talking
through
about
each
them,
of these.
so. I think you can, you got some of our opinions, you can use your judgment based on the arguments that come up. So. Heather, are you gonna be at that 7 PM?
I think so.
Yeah.
I signed
the
up for
alternate?
something on Tuesday, didn't I?
That was the alternate, yes.
Okay.
Well, you're my alternate.
I have
So
to
you'll
look
be
at
there.
everything and be
If
like.
something were to
come to
happen to
it.
Terry, like after midnight on Tuesday night, you could go
Yes,
vote
but you,
the next.
you signed up for a finance workshop earlier in the day,
Okay,
and so did Terry, so.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You did too?
I didn't think I signed up for one earlier.
I believe it did, it's on the paperwork, but we can double check that.
Okay, I can't go to that.
I think it's next number.
Do what she says.
Okay.
So so what this says here is that Terry is taking this and she's delegate would then cast support based on these votes, so.
Yes.
So whatever the 4 yeses are, that's how you're voting at this.
Well,
Yes,
again,
but I like to
before-
hear,
Right, and before she votes, there's gonna be a huge
Discussion.
discussion. Some of these might get shot down before they
Right.
even get there.
and it's nice for me to hear like two sides, like I hadn't thought of that. Oh, are they gonna shut us down in this other area? And that might be something that gets discussed there. People who know more about where it's coming from.
And these resolutions are resolutions made by this delegate convention.
Yes.
But they're not laws.
Right.
You know, they
They
are
switch all the
position
time.
statements for the WASB
Yes.
to advocate lawmakers for. So
Right.
we're not actually
Making a law.
making a law, sadly, because
A
we
delegate
do
from
good. I'm
WASB
sure we
can
would.
go to the, the Capitol or whatever and, say this is our position, but it doesn't mean it goes anywhere.
Sure.
For sure.
Wasn't last year's report that none of them made it through the legislature? I swear that's what it was. Yeah.
Actually, that sounds
I
familiar.
mean, you gotta have a position, but.
So are we making a motion or are we not?
You don't have to make
No,
a
no,
motion.
no. I just wanna make sure everybody got their input in. Okay, next is board self-evaluation. And we all have a copy of this that no one likes to talk about. Where? It's in the doc.
It's in the doc. We don't have a
Under
hard copy of it.
executive, no.
This is the other stuff.
So the reason for the board evaluation is to make sure we're functioning as a board, right? And the norms of collaboration and the collective commitments that we put together, are we following those things? So these things we haven't had very long. We need to review these once a year, and so this is when we're reviewing these. Now that these are on hard copy, do you feel there's any changes that need to be made to these? We're good? I mean, we haven't had it very long.
We just did it. Please don't touch them. They just got laminated.
Board was all here when we did these.
Yeah,
Same
this is all
sheet.
this was, right, so, okay.
Then the questionnaire that we all filled out, the summary totals is down there in the executive content. And there are some areas that we should really address and have conversations about. Some of this stuff is personal, right? It's about individual stuff, and so we should do that part in closed session. Some of this we can do in open session. So, I mean, I went through and highlighted some areas that I wanted to talk about, which you may not want to talk about, but that's why we do a board evaluation, so we can talk about this stuff, sorry. So right in the beginning, question 5, you can open the document on your laptop. When I have a question or an issue about a meeting agenda item, I contact the district administrator prior to attending that meeting. So we rated ourselves as a 3.4. I would argue that you should always feel like, it shouldn't be well, I do it sometimes and I don't do it sometimes. It should always be something you do every time. So if you ever have a question, you should contact Vince right away, email or call him or something and say, I have this question. Can you help me understand it before you come to the board meeting? So just,
I guess I think that the question might be a little misleading in the sense that, like, if I have a question that needs to be addressed prior to discussing it at a meeting. I mean, a lot of times I might have a question about it, but it's an opportunity. We need to talk about it as a group, or maybe other people would have the question. I think the spirit of the question, though, is if I should talk to Vince prior, do I feel that I take the time to do that, or I have the opportunity to agree to that? Yeah, right. So I don't know if I answered the question according to the spirit of the question, like, yeah.
Well, what I would say is, and I have this conversation during new board, and we onboard new board members, is the reason I would say that this is important is, you may ask me a question now and I don't have the information, right? You call me beforehand, I can bring the information and make sure, if I can get it, and the reason I want to get you the information so you can make the best possible decision you can make at the board meeting. And if you have a question, you don't ask me, and then you ask me here and I don't get you the information, well, now you're making a decision based on not all the information you wanted. So, but obviously, as you said, those conversations happen, like questions pop up while we're having a conversation. Absolutely, like that's just gonna happen at a board meeting.
So I reserve my decisions on matters until the board committee or the board meeting is in session.
What number?
It's number 6, the next question.
Okay.
And we didn't score a total of 4 on that, and I would argue you can't make a decision before you come in to have a conversation. The whole reason we get here and meet is to hash these things out openly, to make your decision after we hash them out. So something that we had no discussion on, sometimes there's something in here and it's like there's no conversation on it at all because there's nothing to talk about, right? It's just, are we gonna pass this thing, and we pass this thing. Sometimes it's something from the state or the federal government, we have no choice. But often we do have discussions about this stuff. And I wanna argue that we should not come to these meetings already having a decision made. It's just, that's the reason we're here, is to make those decisions openly.
I would agree to that. I think we should do our research, and we should
No, definitely, for sure, yes.
certainly have our information and data and opinions, but we should definitely come with an open mind to hear our fellow board members, what they have to say, and
Right.
receive it.
Right.
And then make a decision.
Right.
For sure.
Well, to your point, Adam, if you look at 7, that's kind of what you're saying, and that's a 3.9.
Right, and that's great, yes. We did score a little low on attending necessary WASB workshops and meetings.
We
scored very low on that, actually. So do people not know what necessary WASB workshops and meetings are?
It is kind of
It is very vague, yes.
like, what are the necessary?
Necessary.
So like, maybe, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know which ones would be necessary.
Title IX.
Huh?
Title
Title IX training.
Oh, okay.
Right, there's certain trainings on their website that we should do.
Right, but we got a notification internally that we had to take that training.
Right.
So that was,
No, I
it
suppose
was
that's not-
WASB, but it was
But it
also
does come through them.
district, so.
I'm sorry, are you done with that?
No, I just, so we should get rid of the word necessary. I attend WASB workshops and meetings.
Right, I think it's a problem with
The question itself.
question, although the discussion is, are there trainings that we should be
Right, there are
attending
many
as
And
a
that's a
board?
good thing for new board members to know, and even old board, there's a lot of stuff. And it doesn't take long, you just put on your little earphones and sit there, and you can be half watching a show and listening to the whole thing and get it, so, but there's a lot of information out there on legalities, on finances, on all sorts of stuff.
Pertinent, does that make more sense than necessary?
I mean, those of
Pertinent,
us.
thank you.
Yeah, pertinent is a good word.
Can we jump back to number 8?
Sure, for sure.
That seems to me like that should be a 4, because isn't that one of our collective agreements?
It is. I publicly support the positions taken by the whole board, even though I may disagree with them. We have a 3.4. Yep. Again, that might be one more for closed session. So, number 15, I visit schools within our district so I may better understand how they function. We're not scoring high on that one. So
I
what,
think
what's
we
the
should-
barrier and how do we get around
I
that?
think, well, Catherine and I were talking about this the other day. I wonder if we need to have a discussion about that, about how we do get, how we accomplish this.
Yeah, I
like-
emailed Vince too, cause I don't know like how you do that, and so Vince
Yeah,
had
I
told me that.
happened to,
Sorry.
at one point, went to the primary school, Amy set up, like, you know, it was really nice, I got this special, all the literacy practices that were going on, and, you know, I think part of us don't wanna inconvenience people, but
Yeah.
for us to get into the school buildings as much as we are able to, maybe we should put that on
No, well, I would just say what you, I mean, we can, if you wanna come visit a school, you just need to contact myself or the building principal and set up a schedule, right? So one of the conversations Heather and I had over email was, she talked about coming into a building, I said, we need to set up a schedule for you. We've kind of set the expectation that our administrative staff will pop in. Like, I will pop into classrooms, I've set that expectation, I do it, and I've kind of done it long enough where staff kind of expect that I will pop in from time to time. And I also have some guidelines like how I would do that. A board member just pops in, that's a whole different ballgame, right? They're just not ready for, I mean, not that they would be opposed to it, it's just a surprise, and so we would wanna make sure that they have a schedule, right? We would wanna have a schedule that says, like, I'm gonna be in, this is how long you're gonna be in there too, because one of the things that happens is if you go to one class from 10 minutes, and then they also in your next class for 20 minutes, it's like, oh, Heather Barron was in my class today. She was in for mine too. Yeah, she's in mine for 10. She's in here for 10. Why? She's in mine for 20. Why was she in mine for 20? But you know, that's what happened, right? So people are like, so you just have to kind of schedule, like, we put together a schedule, and the building principals will be happy to do that for you, and then touch base with staff. Because when I was building principal, I did that once in a while with board members. We would schedule a time, and they would come in, and they would go in for, and we would talk to the board however long they wanted to be there, and we would talk to teachers, like, we're just putting together a schedule for such and such board member, they wanna just come pop into classes, see what's going on. And we
It's
can do
also
that.
really good to volunteer in the younger grades to go and read, or, you know,
Volunteer, yeah.
I mean, might be fun.
Is it easier on you guys if like a couple of us do it instead of like having
We want
constant?
you all there at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be real easy.
Group of 7.
You just don't want us to come at all.
No, I want you there. No, I think a couple at a time is fine. Vince makes a good point. Anytime there's something new or someone new to the building, they're really used to Vince and Nick and Andrea. They've set up times, but we could definitely set something up, and we want you in the classrooms. For sure.
And in the end, they'd be fine with it, just as long as they know.
They would.
Yeah.
Right, so they know someone's coming, and they know why, right? So.
It's highly beneficial for board members to see what actually happens in those classrooms.
It reminds you why all the hard work you do here is
Yes.
important.
Oh, and just
Right.
walking through the halls in between times.
Right.
It's great. You just get all that energy.
So I can
If you
look
don't
up
get
at
run over.
everybody.
Just at the high school.
Yeah. And middle school, no. I'm just kidding.
We'll do better with that one.
Yeah.
There's, question 21 is another one. So there's, it should be a perfect score, that I understand I have no authority as an individual board member except as a member of the school board during a convened meeting. It's the only, so when we're in the community, we're just regular everyday people. We have no authority, we are not school board members at all. The only time we're an elected school board member is in these meetings, and that is it. So if someone's not clear on that, that's as clear as you can make it. So we are not school board members unless we're in an open meeting. I just want to make that clear.
We're not school board members with the ability to act on anything, but we're school board members when we're out in the community, and people can come up and talk to us
Right, they can,
about issues related to the school. So I don't know if it's as cut and dry as you make it out. I get the idea behind the point that you're trying to make. We don't have any authority to make any promises or make any decisions unless we're meeting. But we're school board members, even when we're not in session. When I'm walking down Main Street, I'm a school board member.
Right.
But I agree, those should be 4s. That should be a 4.0. To your point, Adam.
Okay. I attempt to attend school-sponsored programs and activities. We're not scoring high enough on there either, in my opinion, so. Is there a way we could be better or try to find more ways to attend school-sponsored programs and activities? I mean, it's easy when your kid is in school.
Right.
And you go because your kid is there.
Right.
Scheduling around all the board meetings.
Yes.
Yes.
Can we just maybe add a day to the week, and then we'll be fine, then we can.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think what that should say, I mean, maybe we could talk about this another time or just think about it and come back, but like, what's a nice smattering of things to go to? You know, what would be a good, you know, like the concerts, of course, are always a huge thing, you know, a couple athletic events to kind of see what's going on, you know,
The musical.
the musical is a biggie. I mean, just make sure that you get to some things that are representative of a whole lot of hard work that people are doing.
Yes.
I think being creative with your time. I mean, like, I was so excited when that email came to read for the 4th graders, and I was like, that's my lunch break, I can do it.
I was excited, then I was like, oh my God, I'm so busy, I gotta do this, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll make it work.
Yeah.
And it was like one of the best parts of my Christmas. It was, yeah,
I think
it was so much
finding
fun.
that there's reward at the end of it too, and being able, like you said, to see the hard work that everybody puts into, and we all give a lot of time, and I understand that it's a big sacrifice for the amount of time we choose to run for these positions, but it is easier if you have children because, but even now I'm just a volunteer coach, but I was in 2 sports for the longest time, and you get to be involved in a way that's so great. And if you have the time and can, you don't have to be proficient in that sport or whatever club or area, but just lending a little bit of time can help get you involved.
So next question is 29. I am familiar with the budgeting process of the district, and this one has been low year after year. And
So-
we do need to address this.
So, I was just gonna say, some of these so like if we only, this might be the type of questionnaire where our goal is that literally everybody answers for everything. And it kind of is, but like when you're doing a self-evaluation, where's your opportunity for growth? So if you just say, yep, I'm all good. So some of these questions, I think, first of all, can be interpreted in a number of different ways. Some of them are specifically to point out, like a reminder to ourselves that we don't have authority as other, you know, as individual board members. But some of them are, you know, like I attempt to attend school-sponsored programs. I mean, I might have put it 2 or 3 because I don't feel like I've been doing that enough and I want to. So I guess I'm just saying sometimes some of these questions are a little hard to answer. I always feel like I need where are the opportunities for growth for me personally, and so.
So 4 is pretty hard for you to answer,
basically. Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
And like, you know,
No, that makes
always,
sense,
you know,
too.
often, never always.
Yeah.
I'm skipping a lot that we collectively
Yeah.
think we're doing a
Yeah,
decent
yeah,
job
I
on,
mean,
so-
you know, I guess I'm just pointing out that some of these questions are, I think we probably all read them a little bit differently, and that's gonna be affecting some of these.
But the
Like budget,
unfamiliarity
yeah.
with the budget has been on here at a low number year after year after year,
Yeah.
so we do need to have some sort of session or something set up.
I'll work with Brent on putting something together.
Right, I mean, it helps at the state convention to get to all the finance things. That made a huge difference for me. I attended every possible one, to get a general idea, but it's nice to have a chance for us to sit with Brent and get because again, you went to it, you came back, and it's a review
I
thing.
feel like I need it over and over again.
It's a very complicated topic, that's for sure.
Not familiar territory.
And then to springboard off that one into the next one, so it's E, board relation to the instructional program. The The board knows how to analyze data and participate in periodic work sessions to review student and district performance and district initiatives to help all students achieve. We apparently don't feel that we are good at doing that. And I think with the walkthroughs that we had, and you're gonna have another walkthrough next month for pillars 1 and 2, those I think do really help get us have a feel of that stuff. And so I think that's making some improvement on that, but.
It is, there's such complexity to that, that I think we all, I guess, feel uncertain about that data, but it's a lot, right?
Administrators talk about how they're going through high-rated data and all that other data, but we never go through that data. We never see the outcome of that data. We see the outcome of the data, sorry. We don't see the raw data or analyze it. Is that something we should be doing? What do you feel?
Well, I wonder if you have to reflect on the scorecard process and how that also is new to the board, and if that is your avenue for during a fall, winter, spring benchmark period, now analyzing some of that internal data that we have, because now we have a mechanism that's gonna have us to do so, right? And that is a fairly new process to the board.
It's brand new, yeah.
Brand new. And we have you.
So us identifying that that is this, right, and that these walkthroughs is this, would bring that number back up.
In my mind, you'd want to have something that would just have long-term consistency, and if that is a process that you're gonna continue with, then that would, right, have that in place.
Right, should address that one. So under F, board relationship to the district budget, the board keeps the community informed about financial needs of the school district. We feel we're not doing that as well as we should. So how can we improve that? That is the question.
I thought the link was very helpful last time when you broke down every bit of what the referendum was doing when it was gonna happen. I thought that was extremely helpful if people looked at it. One piece of that was one piece.
I mean, I didn't score this lower, but the feeling I got from the coffees with the superintendent that we went to is it's not about the financial need, like right now, this budget kind of thing. It's like from here to here kind of thing, which is very hard to do, right? But that is, I think, what the community was asking us. How come you didn't tell us about this to this? You know, you're talking about this.
You mean like you told us that we need to replace all the, I don't know, lights or something the next week, but you didn't tell us that 5 years from now, you're going to be budgeting like this, or you're gonna be asking, is that what you're saying?
I think
like
that's
longer
more
term?
what this, again, I didn't put the lower numbers in here, but that's the feeling I get when I read this and get a lower number from it. Is that more, and how can we fix that issue? Because those are not simple things.
No, I mean, I think what you're talking about is, again, the long-term financial security of the district, right? When we talked about we're going to referendum, we also talked about we will be back.
Right.
A referendum 5 years from now, right? This how state funding is set, and I agree. I think we need to continue to keep the community in the loop because at some point this district's going to have to flip from a non-recurring referendum to a recurring referendum. So we're not going, because that number's just going to continue to grow and grow, and right now we are, and I think that's part of it. Like it's hard to have that conversation, and school finance is so difficult, right? We have there's a low revenue ceiling, which is like the low revenue limit. We are the lowest in the state. I mean, we're not the only ones, but I believe there's a presentation at WASB where they're going to be talking about that. Like, look, when revenue limits were set in 1992, some districts were here, some districts were here. This is where Lodi was. Fiscally, we were conservative and making sure that we were doing, and this has just gone like this.
Right. People don't quite understand that one. So back then, at that time, the district could tax the tax base whatever they kind of wanted. And so they said, well, I need more money, so we're going to tax them more this year. And then the next year, well, we need less money, so we'll tax them less. It was decided. And so we happened to be at a low point when they said, we're going to fix this. And I think Wanakee was at a really high point. And so, like Vince said, those have not been addressed since 1990, I thought it was 96. But it was 1992.
Governor Thompson.
Okay,
So
which is crazy.
one of our primary ways of communicating this is our annual meeting, right? That's where we
Right.
do our big in-depth. So maybe we need to get a little creative of how can we make that into more of a community event to get more people there? I mean, it's not historically well attended.
A rock the gym for the budget process?
I mean,
Raffle?
but, yeah, I mean, seriously.
No, I'm not.
Food,
yeah.
like, make it a more, like, just
Yeah.
thinking back to like when we had the strategic planning and, you know, it's like, how can we kind of emulate some of that to get people invested? Because that's where you really kind of start to get your understanding of.
Yeah, and that's such a great presentation that, you know, like Brent puts together. And he's there to answer questions also.
I did listening sessions for the teachers. Why don't we do listening sessions for community? We've talked about this in the past year that I've been on the board, and nothing's come of it, but I think we have discussed, if I'm not mistaken, in the past, quarterly or twice a year, having a setting where we're open to the community come in and talk to us and us able to talk back to them, which is very different than public input. But something similar to what we did with the teachers, the listening session.
So a listening session where decisions aren't made, right? That's the reason for public input on this stuff. But having a two-way conversation. Yeah. Great. So when would be a good month of the year to do that in? Out of the 12 months.
Or more frequently, depending
Right.
on what we perceive our needs to be.
Right, so let's try one though. Let's just try one day. So December?
No.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to, so November?
You're just listing the worst months?
No, I'm not, right? So October is the annual meeting, so we're already gonna do something
I
then.
think one in March.
So March,
Because people have been in school for a while, things have been going on.
okay?
In the spring?
Yeah, March.
So we do
Around-
have
I
every
mean,
year
that's spring break.
April elections, and we do have, so that would be at the March, right before the April election,
So February or March, sometime in that
okay?
Or May.
area.
Well, I would think after the election, then
So
you
May.
would have new board members who wouldn't know how to respond,
Yeah.
right? I'm not saying there's a great month ever, that's why I'm
They
trying.
may or
to
may
get
not know
down
how to respond, but it may also help new board members to get some perspective of what's
From
part
the
of the
community.
community. So
Right.
maybe May is a good time.
Yeah,
Well, and yeah, and you don't
so
have
not
to.
during the summer, June, July, August.
Oh,
No,
people
I
are
don't
checked
think
out
we're
during the
gonna
That's
summer,
right.
you know,
I'm
like
trying to
summer's.
thin down something.
I mean,
May is better than June, July, or August, because that's summer and people are.
May is still
when they're-
school, so people are still,
Interested in,
yeah.
they're not off on
So,
vacation yet.
sometime in May, at the PAC, which is not good for administration, because that's their nightmare
Yeah,
time.
May is a very
I know,
difficult
what was wrong with
time of year
March?
for school.
Yeah, I know, what was wrong
Right
with March?
before the election.
But we don't have anything to do with that. I mean, it's not like that's added to our
But I
schedule.
feel like it
No,
could
it-
turn into like
Every
But
year,
but
board
two or three of
members.
you will be up for election.
Every year.
Every year.
Right,
You
true.
can do it in March. So if you bring people
Plus,
there, it will.
plus if you're running for election, you're probably gonna have that Optimist Q&A or other
Right.
events that you're going to for the election. So that's why, when they said after the election, that made more sense to me personally.
Because there'll be new.
I wouldn't object to March, but.
The new board members will be there. Sure. And
So April is not a nightmare for, not as a nightmare for administrators. And it
The
is
end of
after
Ap-
the election,
End of April.
right? So
toward the
that
end
might
of
be the sweeter spot.
So your new board member wouldn't go on until after that fourth Monday. of
April
the month.
25th.
Right, but they could still attend,
Yeah.
right? They wouldn't be able to say anything.
the
but they could
administrators
still-
have to be there?
They do not,
no,
but it just,
Just scheduling it.
knowing our administrators, they would want to hear the information also. That's the problem. So,
Well,
You can give them a synopsis.
we can give them a report.
Yeah. So you guys can go home sometimes.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't want to set that precedent or that unspoken expectation that they would have to.
Right.
No,
either,
they
I
do.
don't see that as
Right.
something that they would
Well,
have to
I would think they would need, I think Vince would need to be there. I mean.
No, I wasn't talking about
I was
Vince,
just
I
gonna
was
say,
talking
like,
about everybody else.
conversation go crazy off the rails. And I'd be like promising people all kinds of stuff. I'd be like, I can fix that for you.
People will say things that we won't have an answer
Yeah,
for,
yeah.
as we've already found out when we talk to teachers, right?
Right.
But the administrators do, and so,
This is to board and to the district administrator. This isn't to principals or the other administration. Now, if they were around, I would anticipate that they would love to come and be a part of it, but they wouldn't be required, in my mind.
no, definitely not required, for sure.
If you have nothing better to do.
Yeah.
We don't have lights.
And there will be cookies.
So do you think April or May?
May.
May.
It still comes back to May because the end of April. End of
What
April or
is
1st of
your
May.
opinion on this, Mr.
We're giving you
Administrator?
April and May.
I think it's a great idea that we
Yeah, a
should do.
couple thoughts I've had is, one, sometimes it's nice to have it not in school.
Right.
So that's why we did the coffees,
Yep.
at the coffee shop. It was just another
Oh.
place that we could do some,
I
but,
see like a public.
it depends how many board members would come, right? Typically, we had one, we sometimes two.
Yeah,
at
that's cool.
those. I would have to look at the calendar, like I can look at it, and
I know, I also feel like May
May is a very busy month for
That's
schools.
what I'm worried
I mean,
about.
it just
Right.
is,
Is
it's the
parents
end of
aren't
the
going
year,
to-
and
Or
parents
end
too.
April or something like
Yeah,
that.
we could look at that possibility. You get, once you get past spring break, it is just a mad
A
dash
March to the
because,
end.
Well,
there's just stuff going on.
no matter what day, no matter what day, no matter what month we pull out, we're always gonna have reasons to not
Right.
do it. April, to me, seems like a very good time if you don't want May. Like, April or May, like, boom or boom is what I would say.
Try it and like,
See
if
what
we think
happens.
the date is terrible, then the next time we do it's a different
Yeah,
time.
it doesn't mean you have to do it at the same time the next year.
Are you thinking
Just
Saturday,
pick-
you're thinking an evening, are you thinking?
I'm thinking an evening would
I
be
think an
easiest.
So I'm
evening.
thinking an evening
Yeah.
during the week, because people
Right.
have
People can
plans
come.
Weekend.
on the weekend
Uh-huh.
typically, but an evening so people can attend if they want to,
Right.
not have a work conflict. And I don't know how you do it anywhere but at the school, just from
Yeah, I don't
the
think
fac-
we have anything
having the
big
proper
enough for.
facilities to do it.
You
PAC.
did it, reach out loud.
Yeah, but the PAC is not a great place to do it.
Oh,
I mean,
no,
PAC is more of a
Right,
sitting up front,
yeah.
right? It's not a,
Cafeteria?
it's not a conversation.
But what about reach out loud?
Reach out loud, right?
But reach out Lodi would be a spot, right, where you have tables and people can sit
Yeah,
at
more
tables
casual.
or put around a circle or that nature. Or again, like the high school, you use school, you use common or library,
The library is a nice.
like the libraries or something like that. I would, again, the PAC, LGI are not great.
No.
It's not a great input back and forth.
No, but the library would be bad.
Yeah, library's nice.
We can look, I can look. Date.
Okay, thank you. That was all I had on the questions that we answered. Does anybody else have any, or? And then we have a lot of comments that we wrote in there. Actually, not as many comments as. Anybody else have anything else? Nobody likes to evaluate. Nobody likes to self-evaluate. It's just the way life is.
And you can read a question 3 different ways
Yep.
or different times.
March school board meeting. Yes, so the board has graciously allowed me to go chaperone the Washington DC trip
Oh, yeah.
Woohoo!
in March, but that means I will be gone for the March board meeting. So I'll kind of give the board a couple options. One, have the meeting without me. Mr. Richter and I think Dr. Carlos would be willing to help support that. Meet the week before, sometime, it wouldn't have to, it could be the Monday before, or it could be sometime during the week before, or the week after. That week after is probably not a realistic option because we're
No.
getting late for the track.
Yeah, I say no to option 3.
So I would say either we have the meeting as scheduled, which would take no board action, or we schedule it sometime the week of March 6th, which would take a board action and move a board meeting. The other option would be joining virtually, but I don't know where I'm gonna be.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that one.
I'm not joining from
Gosh.
Mount Vernon,
It could be some,
right, or whatever.
Lincoln Memorial.
If I knew I'd be in a hotel, that'd be fine.
I mean, I'm good with the 6th.
6?
Yeah,
Work
yeah,
for
I was
everybody?
trying
I
to
feel
get.
like it would be easiest to just move it the week ahead versus.
yes. So then it would be the,
What?
What about you, Scott?
My Montel
6th?
board meeting's lined up too.
Yeah, Carrie? Yeah. That sounds like
Do
that's
we-
a consensus.
Oh, I can't talk today. Sorry. Do
And
we
you're
have
okay.
facility?
join me.
Even though you have 2 meetings.
No,
that
I
week.
have it this week too, it's fine.
Okay.
I move that we move the regular March Board of Education meeting from March 13th, 2023 to March 6th, 2023.
and I'll second that.
Motion by Scott and a second by Terry. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 6-0.
Is that the same week we'll have
7-0.
facility and finance committee?
No,
That's the
that's the
Monday
day
before.
previous.
I think we just really need to make sure that gets out to the community since
Well,
they're
it'll
always.
go out through every announcement vehicle
Yeah.
we have, so,
And we'll post it.
and everyone who's watching.
I'll
March
everyone you
6th,
know.
March 6th.
State convention discussion.
Not a whole lot of discussion, we've already talked about it a couple different times through here, so just a reminder, it's this next week. So people will see a posting for board, right, we post that because we have 4 board members together. Not that we won't be making decisions, but anytime we have 4 board members together, we post it, so there'll be posting for us to be gone at that convention. So, and those are the 4 board members who are going.
Next, we have board election update. So 5 people filed candidacy paperwork. Thank you, Barb Bonner, Susan Gotho, who was here, right, and left. Julie McKernan, who was on the board previously, Sarah, who's here, Sarah Rimish, and myself. And so because there are so many, we will have a primary on February 21st to go from 5 to 4. And I'm assuming we have to pay for that one because there's nobody else.
State Supreme Court.
Oh, there is a
State
judge.
Supreme Court,
All right, good.
Is that they anticipate, I assume there is, there was going to be, so, yeah.
There are no first policy readings, there are no second policy readings. Gifts and donations, we have $600 donation from American Lung Association for LCAT, a $1,000 donation from Schultz Insurance for Lodi crew and pool programs, and a $500 donation from Amy and John P. Fossbender for the Thailand exchange program.
Make a motion to accept the $600 donation from the American Lung Association for Lodi Community Action Team, the $1,000 donation from Schultz Insurance for crew and pool programs, and the donation of $500 from Amy and John P. Fossbender for the Thailand exchange program with great gratitude.
I'll second that.
Motion by Barb and a second by Terry. Any further discussion? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes 7-0. Committee reports, CISA 5.
We had a dinner meeting, so we don't usually talk about too much during those. It's more of a little social and getting to know people, but there was one thing that was pretty interested. So our CISA 5 agency administrator, Jeremy, started really looking into the RTI Center. And it's basically a program funded through a federal grant distributed by the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction to CISA 5. So we are their fiscal agent. And even before COVID, but then when COVID hit, he started to really notice that the people that were working at this were not really doing anything and basically reporting that they're going to these schools. And Jeremy really started to investigate and ask these schools. And I think they said they were helping 12 schools, and 7 of those schools said, no, they're not. So the annual budget for that grant was $5 million. So he's really starting to dig into it, and basically the government kind of didn't really know what to do, and they said go for it, and they're probably gonna end up just eliminating that program entirely and kind of starting from scratch, but that means that $5 million is gonna be open to schools to a program that's going to be actually doing things. So they just really started looking into their hours, and these people just weren't working, basically. And then I think for 2 years, they were all working from home, but not really even going into the schools anymore or anything. So he really started digging into it, and I was pretty proud of him, because the emails that were going back and forth, he just kept pushing, because they were kind of just feeding him BS, basically. And then he said, no, it looks like you're not. So that's kind of exciting, and we've been kind of cheering him on, because it's been a lot of work. But to free up that much money to go to something else. I feel bad, and this was a discussion too, is we feel bad for the bottom people. Maybe they didn't know they were not, but, and one of our people at the meeting had said, okay, do these people know that this is happening? And he said, yeah. And she's like, well, maybe we should be focusing more on the top executives. But he said we really need to just, and people that were actually possibly working, they can definitely apply for whatever we're gonna put this into, but they said they really need to just scratch the whole thing and get people, so that was pretty interesting, I thought. So that was kind of the main discussion that we had, so, but yeah.
Co-curricular report.
Co-curricular report for January 2023, wrestling. Over break, the wrestling team traveled to compete in the Bi-State Classic Wrestling Tournament. As a team, Lodi placed 5th out of 26 teams in Division II and 14th overall out of the 70 teams in attendance. Lodi scored 168.5 team points, which is the second most in the program history. Junior Mason Lane finished in 6th place, and senior Zane Light finished in 1st place for the 2nd straight year, defeating a returning state champion from Division I in the process. Zane was also selected as the Wrestler of the Week by Wisconsin Wrestle. Boys basketball. The boys basketball team has an overall record of 4-5. They suffered a close loss to Poynette on Friday night, with Poynette scoring as time expired for a 1-point win. This week they traveled to Columbus on Thursday and Stoughton on Saturday, before starting a 3-game homestand versus Lakeside Lutheran, Lake Mills, and Evansville. Girls basketball team has an overall record of 4-10 and a conference record of 0-2. Girls basketball team has made great improvements since the beginning of the season. They are very young in terms of varsity experience and are led by seniors Abby Haas and Jameson Theron. They took 1st place in the Watoma Holiday Tournament with 2 really big team wins, and are continuing to develop across all 3 levels. Boys hockey. The Norski hockey team is very young this year and has endured numerous injuries and illnesses plaguing the start of the season for them. The Norskis found its first win against Milton on December 9th. Lodi seniors Gabe Larson and Caden Leatherberry are having big years for the team, as the team looks to have a strong finish to the second half of the season. Girls hockey. The Icebergs co-op hockey team is 2-8 with a conference record of 1-3. Recent wins include a 2-1 win over Beaver Dam and a 7-1 win over Northland Pines. They play Baraboo tonight and travel to Cedarburg on Tuesday before hosting Beloit Memorial on Thursday night. Mock trial. The mock trial team has 22 awesome kids out this year on 2 very large teams. This past weekend, they participated in the Brookfield Central Knockout Tournament, which is a very competitive tournament drawing many of the best teams from around the state. The varsity team took 5th place in the top division with a 2-1 record, and the JV took 7th. Coming up, they will be hosting the Lodi Tournament at the Sauk County Courthouse in Baraboo next Saturday, the 14th. Following weekend is another huge tournament at Brookfield Academy. The regional tournament will be held at the Dodge County Courthouse in Juneau on Saturday, February 4th. Forensics. The forensics season is off to a start with the first forensics tournament scheduled for Saturday, January 21st at Watertown High School. Esports. The Lodi esports team finished their fall season for the title Super Smash Brothers. They finished the regular season with a record of 41-111, which placed them 13th out of 18 teams in their conference. They lost their first round playoff match to Racine Unified School District to conclude the season. The Club had an amazing turnout with 17 high school participants. And that's the co-curricular report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
OSC.
We had a very brief meeting in December, and a lot of it was covered in the report already. One of the big things I think for us is, well, we're super excited for her. Nikki Shinneman has left OSC as our interventionist and is now a 5th grade teacher. So very sad for us because she's been a very integral part of that team, but really super excited that we still have her in the district.
It's amazing. Board reports, personnel.
Okay, so we had a meeting, I don't know, last week.
Wednesday.
Yeah, feels like it wasn't very
Recently.
long ago. Recently. We had a presentation, a chance to ask some questions of the police chief in town, just a collaboration with the kind of a general conversation about the collaboration with law enforcement with the district, what types of calls might come from the school, what types of things are the police doing in the area, and they document, everything, every time they're driving by or they're checking the doors, things like that. And so it was an opportunity for us to also ask questions and talk to the administrators a little bit about what types of calls they might make to the police, what might trigger those calls. Kind of just a general conversation about what their relationship is with us and what they're doing. The other items we had, we've seen on consent agenda, there's a little increase in summer school pay. We had to make a motion about payroll dates for the 2023-24 school year since the early start. And we are beginning the process of looking at compensation models. We just had a little bit of an update that's kind of ongoing, and it's going to be a big project. So.
Yes, it will.
Yes.
Curriculum and policy has not met, and so facility finance.
We met last week also. Brent came and shared with us that the 2021-2022 audit is completed and the district finished with a surplus. He shared that the 2022-2023 budget was underway. And the analysis of the budget begins in the middle of January. And then the 2023-2024 budget, the Baird model is built, and there will be a meeting with the school district with a Baird representative to discuss the updating the various variables. And then the committee decided to move forward with bidding out the turn project.
Okay, future meeting and agenda items.
Yeah, I have something I wanted to bring up. We had a great presentation tonight from the students that went to Thailand, hearing about their experiences and about benefits of meeting new people and seeing different cultures and just their ability to travel internationally. I do think that it is worthwhile for the board to discuss situations that we are willing and comfortable putting our students in with regards to international travel. World's a different place, the world's a dangerous place, and just making sure that our students are in a position where they are looked after and not put in harm's way. I'm not suggesting that we stop these programs, but I think we just should have an open discussion as a board, our feelings on situations that we put or allow our students to be put into internationally. So I would like to ask that that be put on the agenda to be discussed further.
Okay. Anybody else? We do not need to return to closed session.
Okay, all right, we'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Angie and a second by Terry. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned 7-0.